You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. There are thousands of children in foster care who will take you just as you are.
Hey, you going out like that?
Yeah, why?
Well, what would the neighbors think?
I see you! Come look at Mr. Feather. Look what I have. Mr. Bird, remember? Bark, bark, bark. We're just playing. We're just playing. I'm trying to get you out of here.
Even still.
You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. There are thousands of teens in foster care who don't need perfection. They need you.
All right, give me a spot. You know my motto, safety first.
They could be dangerous. I think we should call animal control.
Animal control?
To be safe.
Don't worry.
Just...
I got this. It's a new motto.
You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. There are thousands of teens in foster care who don't need perfection. They need you.
Traditional light bulbs actually generate 9 times more heat than light. Switch to Energy Star light bulbs, and you'll realize just how much cash you are really burning through. Saving energy saves you money. Learn more at energysavers.gov.
Have you ever helped a fellow veteran?
Of course.
Yes. Have you ever asked for help yourself?
It's always tough, right?
I always feel like I can solve my own problems, but eventually, you just can't deal with it on your own.
And you start to question, maybe people would be better off without me. When you realize that you're not alone, once you take that first step, there's so much support.
Mom, can we get some ice cream? Please, Mom, please.
No, we're having dinner soon.
Please.
You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. There are thousands of children in foster care who will take you just as you are.
Oh, sweetheart. Gonna give you a hand?
No thanks, Dad. I got it.
Okay. I'm gonna go fix the lamp in your room.
You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. There are thousands of children in foster care who will take you just as you are.
Yes, I have.
I'm digging it up. I'm digging it up. Stand by.
Yes, yes.
After the fact. It might have even been in the fall.
Thought I had it.
All right, message sent.
Do you have his number?
Yes.
Oh, shall I or you?
No, I already sent him text messages and I spoke to him wrong 7 times.
Okay.
See if I can do it. There was a guy in church whose cell phone went off. Big time. Now, I get it, you forget. It'll definitely be intriguing. But it went off twice. So, like, why would you not turn it off after the first time? I think that's it, yeah. Especially the priest even said something. He's like, do you want me to? He said he's here.
I think he just pulled in.
I would have. I don't understand, like, twice in the same mass. I turned my. I just turned the sound off. No, I don't really expect anyone to. If anything. Yeah.
There he is.
Yeah. I mean, I think it worked better for a bunch of ships anyway, but we weren't sure if we still lived at a high cost.
It's any way you want. Chairman's.
So in my car? Good.
Then I'll open up mine and I'll let you, give what you have planned for.
Good.
Good evening. This is the joint meeting of the Finance Committee and the Select Board. It's Wednesday, May 21st, 2025. It is 6 p.m.-ish. We are in the Public Safety Complex, but the meeting is also available by way of Zoom link. Our committee requires a quorum of 4. There are 3 present. There is 1 joining us by way of Zoom link. We have a quorum. I declare we're open for business.
I call to order the Board of Selectmen meeting for May 21st, 2025 from the Public Safety Complex. We too have a quorum present, plus 1 on Zoom and another one stuck in traffic who will be here momentarily.
So thank everybody for joining us this evening. We're going to do our very best to conduct our business, but at the same time include all of you with respect to perhaps calling on you to answer some questions, and certainly calling on you to allowing you to speak. I've been asked to ask that you be mindful of your cell phones, perhaps being set to silent, and those of you that have laptops, be aware that occasionally it sends a signal that causes an echo and disrupts the process. So our apologies for that administrative request, but I think you'll appreciate it in the end, in the event something does occur. So we've got a big job ahead of us. It's no secret that we are now faced with a budget deficit of $1,130,000. Not the result of an override, but the override failure has pushed the responsibility back to the Finance Committee to deal with that rejected override and come up with a balanced budget. We're certainly happy to have the Select Board join us. I think it speaks volumes that we're trying to work together with not only the Select Board, but with the town administrator and all the department heads. It's not been not only less than fun 3 or 4 months, but in particular, it's been a particularly less fun week for us to try to address how to address this particular deficit. I want to compliment the town administrator for reaching out to the department heads, and compliment the department heads for responding back to the town administrator. Don't want to get ahead of myself because there's all volume of narratives and budget worksheets and summary schedules and the like, and we'll try our best to control presenting that so that we don't confuse any of you, but least of which don't confuse any of us. Decision was made, I think, principally at the town administrator level, to ask for the department heads to submit budgets that reflected a 18.25 reduction. In addition, to submit a second budget reflecting a 28.50 budget. I don't need to tell you the impact that each of those had, and in particular the 28.50, but certainly the 18.25. So we're here today to try our best to talk about both of those. It might be challenging and confusing to talk about both of them at the same time. So we may focus principally on the 18.25 submission by the department heads, many of which are present this evening, and also all of whom submitted a narrative to speak to the point of the impact that that type of reduction would have on their already tight budget when we went through our process earlier this year. So with that, I happen to, if you don't mind, took the liberty of speaking with and emailing the town administrator late this afternoon, that I thought with all the material that she sent to us, that there was one schedule in particular that kind of framed the discussion, and the beauty of it is happens to be on one single sheet. I think it's on the board right now, and as you can see, I'm not responsible for the colors, and any of those that are colorblind, I apologize, but as you can see, there happens to be in the blue box budgets that are reflecting an 18.25 impact in the pink, a 28.50 impact. Along the left-hand side, there are all manner of departments. We may use department numbers, and we hope we don't confuse you in the process. Just as an example, the select board is listed here as number 5, but frankly, we may refer to it so that we can refer to other materials that we have as Department 1122. And if you scroll down all the way to the bottom, you'll see under this particular impact that with the 18.25 in the blue column, we're able to arrive at a modest surplus of 1,086. For those of you that are as good at math as I suspect many of you are, you might be asking, well, how could we possibly have deeper cuts to the tune of 28.50 and end up with a deficit of 15,352? And that is, I would direct your attention to the second line up from the bottom, current revenues. There's a substantial change to current revenues in one of the columns versus the other. I think we'll probably hold what that is, other than I will share with you right now, it's free cash. A substantive, suggestive change in the pink column, but we're going to focus, I think, on the blue column right now. I think, and by the way, is that visible for everybody to see? I think there are handouts. Are there handouts for this particular document?
I have a few for the department heads, and if you're sitting next to a department head, perhaps you can let someone look on. Otherwise, if you do have a device on you and you're interested, all of this is now on the website under the FY26 Budget Finance Committee section under Materials.
So if you, to scroll back up, Heather, and pardon my quarterbacking this, others can step in as they like. If I'm not mistaken, it's not identified and they're not numbered, but there are 43 cost centers or departments. And by that we mean the DPW would be a department, but the retirement assessment would be a cost center. So we're trying to use that phrase interchangeably, but the makeup of all of those in total is 43. And if I'm not mistaken, there are 12 that are not changed from the Finance Committee originally approved them. They're not changed in an 18.25 reduction. They're not changed in a 28.50 reduction, in some part because they can't be changed. For example, debt and the interest on debt and retirement, snow and ice, and so on and so forth. So a thought only, is it advantageous for the Finance Committee to vote reapproval of those 12 and take them out of consideration and shrink the 43 down to 31, and maybe speak to the two school budgets, and now we shrink it even further by 2 more, so that we're dealing with a manageable number of 29, which is a big number, and not substantially more manageable than 43, but I'd like to take those that we can't do anything about out of play, and I'd certainly welcome anybody to comment as to why we can't take them out of play. So that's thought number 1.
They are out of play. They're out of play. So I think, I mean, the school budget's been litigated. It's been passed out of 4 out of 5 towns. It's not going to change. The Bay Path budget was at net school spending. That's not going to change. Obviously, the retirement figure we can't change, and debt we can't change. So I think we can just, I don't think we need a vote. We can just remove them from the table and focus on where we can, unless there's a budget for a vote.
So Heather, do you, just to help us along, do you have highlighting capabilities here?
I do. Just give me 1 second. I'm going to swap out my sheet of paper for a moment. Okay.
So the first one is 1177, regional planning.
Yep.
The
What
next
color
is-
would you like? Yellow? Yellow work?
Yellow works.
Okay, yep.
This is a soft elimination, but 1292, animal control officer. 1423, snow and ice. 1424, street lighting. 1443, waste collection. Semi-soft reduction, 1543, veterans agent. 1710, 1711, 1750, 1751, debt and interest related. And 1911 retirement assessment. And another soft elimination at the top of the page, 1132, reserve fund. I think that's in play, but it has not been changed in any of the budget eliminations. I think the reason that it's in play, on the one side, there's been a number of years that it's only been budgeted at 40,000. The conventional wisdom this year and going forward would be to budget at 50,000. When the budget is so tight, there's a lot of demand and request on that particular reserve fund. So it looks like an easy target, but during the year when you have a server or a generator or something that fails, the reserve fund was the go-to fund. So again, open for further consideration, but of the 12, I think 9 are definitely hard closes and 3 are probably soft closes. To Jeff's point, if we could speak to account 1300 and 1310, both of those are school budgets. That ship has sailed. Probably other discussion for another day, but the truth is that 4 towns in the Wachusett Regional Area District have voted to approve the Wachusett Regional District school assessments to their towns. So for the lack of a better word, we really don't have much choice. And Bay Path Vocational, which is identified as vocational school assessment. That's the minimum local contribution mandated to us by the state. We could hate it, but there's nothing we can do about it. So I think that perhaps can be taken out of play. The rest of them are up for consideration for us to ask questions of those department heads that are present, for any department head who may want to make a presentation to do so. And that's kind of where we are. And in my suggestion, which is, it's not my meeting, it's a joint meeting, but my suggestion is that we focus on the 18.25 column. Initially and principally, doesn't mean that we can't sway to the right and go to the other column, but I think the focus is on the 18.25, because if I can editorialize, I read all the narratives, and 18.25 is impactful enough. 28.50 is hard to describe the impact that it would have. It would be crippling in to some extent. So that's where we are now. Having said that, I'd like to add money to 3 budgets for your consideration. Not to screw the works up, but let me speak to what they are. Happens to be account 1151, legal services. The Finance Committee was hell-bent on budgeting that at $30,000 when a lesser amount was submitted to us. There are, even through June 30th of 2025, all manner of requests for more money to fund legal services. Just this past week, the Finance Committee and the Select Board approved $10,000 out of health insurance to pay for legal costs. So there's been $10,000 out of that. There's been money out of the reserve fund, and the department itself has exhausted all of its budget. So we're hardly of the understanding that, if I can find it just a minute here, that $24,000 is going to be sufficient. For further consideration, I think it should be at $30,000. The second one for consideration is Department 1123, which is Town Administrator. It's, I think the smart thing to do is the Town Administrator, her department at this particular time was to step up and take an 18.25 reduction or a 28.5 reduction, just like any of the other departments. But all the conventional wisdom in replacing that position is that it's going to be $135,000. And whether or not it's allocated because it's not a full year or something of that nature, I just think we need to be smart. It's nice to reduce the budget, but we think we need to be smart of what we're reducing it to when we already know it's going to be higher than what is there. Again, for everybody's edification and consideration on the last one, and then I'll be quiet, is tree warden 1295. Once again, the Finance Committee was hell-bent on budgeting that at $10,000. The former tree warden is in the audience, and he knows better than I that $6,000 doesn't go very far, and in fact, we were advocating for that to be budgeted at $210,000. So for us to cut it all the way down to the number that's being proposed of $3,100, I dare say I don't know how many trees can be rescued for that amount of money when we know we have a tree problem. And why cut it when we simply know that we're going to have more than that going forward? So So with that, I'll summarize. There's 43. We've eliminated 12. I've spoken to 14 if you include the 2 schools, and I've spoken to 3 others, and I would dare say the rest are open for conversation, consideration, and wherever the select board may want to take the discussion, or the finance committee may want to take the discussion, or department heads for that matter.
Just real quick on, well, the tree warden, I think 210,000 would be a little challenging. Agreed with the finance committee on that. The legal services was particularly high this year, but I believe we negotiated a police chief's contract and CBAs, and that shouldn't be in the running for this coming year, so that should alleviate some of that draw on legal services.
Good to know, good to hear. The experience would suggest, hope you're right. But we need to go with that background information. So what would you suggest the number be, as it's proposed at 18.25 reduction? $24,525?
Well, even if we didn't go all the way to, yeah, I would think 25,000 would be a reasonable number without the CBAs and the police chief contract being negotiated.
We'll take anything over that out of the select board budget, FY26.
Go ahead. There's only one budget I've seen so far go up, and that was FinCom, went from 170 to 178.
That was the dude.
I would support cutting that, Peter. I would.
For the record, last year was 173, and I personally paid the $3 extra so that we didn't have to go to the reserve fund. So I'm happy to pay the $8 extra this year too.
Thank you very much.
If
I'll
you
take
like.
half of it if you want. I'll pay for half of it.
You pay half.
You know, as we work towards $1 million in savings, which is a significant number, to the select board and the finance committee, is there any appetite to start without a guidance as a first attempt to look for some savings? And I'm going to caveat that with one thing. If we do decide to look at out of guidance first, is there is a police officer position in that out of guidance that was not funded or was allowed to run open last year, so it's kind of a separate conversation. But is there, you know, if we get into deeper conversations about that particular line item, we have to factor that in. Is there any appetite to start without a guidance?
I think there is, from my perspective, Jeff, that because those are the sort of the items that I think the departments had already flagged as potentially being cuttable, if you want to put it that way.
Yeah, yeah. So outside of guidance for in the audience, was departments submitted a budget within that came within 2.5%, and then items up and above 2.5% were considered outside of guidance. So just a budget formatting there.
First of all, I think it's a good suggestion. My problem is that when we do that, for example, police. If I take a look at, because they were out of guidance by $90,000. I rounded down, but $90,000. If you look here, their reduction is pretty close to $250,000. So if we take 90 out, what do we do with the other reduction? And my guess is that part of the reduction of 18.25 is capturing the out of guidance.
Yeah, that's what, yeah, exactly. That's what I meant when that, just on that particular item, because they're the one department that didn't backfill or let a position run open, that if we get into that, we have to factor that in. Basically, it shouldn't be cut twice.
Right.
If we go there. So that's, yeah. So I guess we should, I'm sorry, I don't know if somebody has something to say, but I guess that's where our starting point is. I think the out of guidance number with schools is 700,000 and change. If you subtract out the 433, I think it is for schools, the municipal portion is around 300,000 of out of guidance. Thoughts, anyone?
So I guess my only concern is, right, so when departments took a look at this in a stab, to your point, or everyone's point so far, the modified captures the removal of the out-of-guidance pieces, right? And also what was already captured is last week we had discussions about the concern that if you took out the guidance first and then you did percentage cuts after that, it was hard because some people, like for instance, the town clerk's office, it leaves out the vacant assistant town clerk position, which was already a significant cut, and then if you cut on top of that the 18.25. So that's why we ended up trying the 18.25, because it captured both grabbing that, and it was even across the board. Otherwise, you know, you kind of sit there, I mean, I'm sure someone can figure it out, but I sit there kind of boggled as to how do I calculate what percentage now to cut someone that we've already cut a certain piece from. So right now, as Mark had stated before, right, there's a modified 18.25% budget. With the exception of any modification such as to the tree warden, this budget came to the FinCom tonight and it's balanced, right? There's gonna be things you guys love, there's gonna be things you guys hate, there's gonna be things everyone hates that occur in this budget. If I were to make a recommendation, it would be to start going through either, you know, item by item on this or department by department, go down the line. You have every department here. We are here, we are ready, we are willing, we are able, we are excited to answer questions, some more than others, but very excited here to support and provide any resources that these two committees need to be able to provide informed decisions on what to do. And this captures, I think, a good starting point. From there, I think we totally recognize that there's a possibility that the boards may wish to go with the pre-numbers, right, the FinCom adjusted numbers. There might be some desire to go less than the 18.25% for some departments or a higher number for some departments. I don't know the answer, but I think this is the starting point. I think if we back up and go to the out of guidance, we're going to be adding hours to our discussion, and we're not really sure how it's going to mesh together.
Okay, so that's fine. So the numbers you present, the capture out of guidance. So I think that's good. I think we should go line by line. And the only thing I'll say before we do that, is it worth having a conversation about what baseline priorities are to both committees? Meaning, what are table stakes? Is it X amount of police, X amount of fire, X amount of library, X amount of whatever? Is that worth it, or do you just want to go line by line?
So let me piggyback to that a little bit, Jeff. We were all put on alert this evening to start the meeting at 6. Don't plan anything the rest of the evening. Bring snacks. I think you even said bring pillows. We're going to do an all-nighter here.
Oh, jeez.
And I think to a large extent we're prepared to do that, although we do have a second joint meeting set up for next Tuesday. So having said that, I'm not looking to make super short work of it, but I like to call them 18.25, and I like it for this reason, that I'm sure all the departments, big and small, particularly small, would like to have 0 cuts, or at the minimum 5%. 10%, you're killing us. 18% is really impactful. But all 29 departments were, pardon the expression, were hit equally. Bigger departments for a bigger amount, but they're bigger departments, and by doing the simple math, it is a bigger amount.
Yep.
And by doing that, we're there. We've got a $1,000 surplus. So I think there's value in going through each budget line by line, but we've done that, and we've read the narratives, and it's there, and let's not lose sight of the fact that we need to come up with $1,130,000. No matter who is going to submit to us the most compelling defense of how badly your department is needed, we're there. We're right with you. We've had the interviews. Many of you, we didn't even invite for another interview because we know how valuable your department is. We don't need to be sold. We can't lose sight of the fact we need to cut by $1,130,000. Now, we picked up $105,000 on a revisit of some revenue, so it's not exactly $1,130,000, but we're there with that particular column. As painful as it is, and what I don't want to get into is, and don't hold me to this, but I don't want to take money from the town clerk to give to the town accountant, or from, the assessors to give it to the administrative assistant. Then we get into a real unfair moving of the numbers. This is, as bad as it is, this was as fair as it could be because everybody's chipping in. And I think the message from the vote, 3 overrides, somebody said it's been 8 out of 9 over the last number of years the overrides have failed. I don't know that to be true, but I know the last 3 were defeated. We need to re-engineer these particular departments. This is the new norm, that the message has been sent, so spread the pain equally. And everybody has a compelling story how 18.25 is awful. We get it. But 18.25 is the number we need in order to get. Don't mean to put words in your mouth, but you said at the last meeting it's 20%. I'm glad it's not 20%, it's 18.25, but we're there. So we can talk about every department, but I don't want to get into favoritism, and I don't mean that in the bad connotation that it generates. I just don't want to get in to somebody wrote a better narrative, so let's not take 500 out of theirs and let's move 600 to somebody else. I think that's a dangerous process.
Mr. Love, may I?
Yeah.
To whom are we being fair?
Huh?
To whom are we being fair? So I guess my question, it goes back to what Mr. Wenzel just said.
Let me answer that question. This isn't fair to anybody.
Well, no, you said it was
the fairest.
Fairest, okay.
Nobody is being shown preference over the other.
Right.
This is unfair to everybody, but this is not our call. We've been sent a mandate to cut the budget by $1,130,000. So
Right, but
with
how?
that, this unfair column is a result of that.
But we still have a job to do, and I don't know that we can sit here and put equal weight on every single cost center or department. And I say that only because there are things that the town needs to provide for the safety and well-being of our citizens that may be a priority, as Mr. Wenzel was alluding to, over some other departments. Now, I understand what you're saying, that it's the fairest way to treat each line item, but I don't know that our responsibility is to do that, or to take the money that the town says we have, living within our means, and spending it as wisely as possible by prioritizing what is it that the town absolutely has to do that citizens cannot do on their own. Our citizens should, and I know I said this before, but I'll say it again, our citizens can't police themselves. Our citizens are not going to put out fires on their own. They're not going to provide themselves ALS service. We may not be able to provide that, I understand that. But I'm just saying that's, I think, and again, I don't want to put words into Mr. Wenzel's mouth, but it seems like that's what he's thinking is,
That's right.
we need to prioritize. We have this pie, and how we've been given the pie, and the mandate is, here's your pie, that's it, that's what you've got to spend. Spend it wisely, I think is the mandate.
So once again, I'm going to speak in favor of the 18.25 column, but this is now the second meeting where you've said, we need to do the things and protect the departments where the townspeople can't do it themselves. Okay? They can't town clerk themselves. They can't make the debits and credits and do the accounting themselves. They can't do the assessing themselves. They can't do the animal control officers themselves. all of these departments are essential because they are things that the townspeople can't do themselves. Not just public safety, all of these. And I think it's unfair to think that some are more important than the others. Certainly, public safety is important, but so is the work of the town clerk, so is the work of the assessor, so is the work as a treasurer and collector. I wouldn't want us to be left to our own devices to collect and deposit and record accounting entries. That's why we have those people to do that. So I'm submitting to you every single one of these departments is important, and shame on the Select Board and the Finance Committee if we look at it today and find out they're not. What have we been doing for 10 years if we've been funding departments that are not essential? I maintain they're all essential.
Okay, and I appreciate what you're saying, and I don't disagree the examples that you gave. I think Mr. Wenzel, and again, I don't mean to speak for you, sir, but I think what he's saying is that there should be some departments that need to be prioritized. I'm going to leave it at that because I think you know what I mean, and I don't want to go back and forth and take the whole evening with a back and forth. I am not saying that any of these departments are not important.
Right.
But we've been told that we cannot run things the way they've been run. That's the mandate.
The point.
I'm sorry, I'll let you talk. Go ahead.
No, precisely the point. The message that has been sent, and the message is that this is the new norm. This is the new.
Yeah.
And we need to re-engineer some of these, including police, fire, and DPW, which are big departments, and they're public safety and public works related, and they're very important, but they're no less or no more important than any of the others. And that's why I keep using the word fair. This is the fairest mistreatment of all of the departments in order to get us to a balanced budget.
It is. So I think the question we get into here, both valid points, is, by doing this 18.25 across everything, obviously the deepest cuts go into public works, police, and fire. So the question is, with this 18.25%, with those specific cuts in police, fire, and public works, can we maintain adequate and safe policing? Can we maintain adequate fire and EMS service? And can we plow roads? I think that's the question. You're both right, but I think that's what we need to determine is, with those cuts in those departments, can we provide basic life safety services, which we're really required to do.
Can I just add to that? I think we also need to look at these. Like last year, we questioned, also, is this the best way to get to it, right? Like, just because this is what got put down on paper for the police or the fire, that doesn't mean, like last year, we had some conversations with Mike, and he came up with some creative ways to I'm not going to say fix, but Band-Aid, fire and EMS last year, but maybe there's different ways to do this, but, to the point made earlier, it's not about which departments are more important. Everybody's going to have a different opinion on what's more important to them,
Right.
We can't get into that. We got to get started at some point. There's a lot right now of, kind of general comments, and so we got to get started. This sucks. Nobody wants to be a part of it.
It's lousy.
But we got to get started at some point. And maybe there are different ways to do this. Maybe we don't. The impact on paper for some of these that I look at, I just wonder if there's other things we can do to lessen the impact. But how are we going to go through line by line, or how do we get started?
What I personally would like is hear from both the public safety chiefs and the DPW director on what the impacts are, because they're the biggest cost centers that we can control, what these impacts would mean. That's what I'd like to hear. What exactly do those impacts mean? And then I think we can go from there. And then we'll hear from other people. But I think they're the biggest cost centers, so it's the biggest dollar reduction. What does it mean?
I think that makes sense.
Yep. And if I can just make a comment while we're mobilizing whoever's going to come up and speak. One thing I'd like to mention is I do think that when budgets were submitted this year, that maybe not everybody, as they were submitting their budget, was coming from the same starting point. And so, over the past couple of years, some departments cut more than others. And, because we've been on this budget reduction schedule for several years now, through several budget cycles. So not everybody's coming maybe from the same starting point. And when you look at the out of guidance forms, I think that makes it pretty apparent that not everybody's coming from the same starting point, because there are some out of guidance forms that are focused on restoring budgets, whereas other out of guidance forms are focused on providing necessary equipment.
Right.
So.
Right. Yeah. Oh, we have I was going to pick on the fire chief first, but come right up here. Come right up here.
Evening. Travis Tebow, the DPW director here in the town of Paxton. So yeah, it's not going to be a pleasant thing, no matter what we have to do, unfortunately.
Microphone. Oh, microphone. I apparently have your microphone. Or you have more. There you go. You have plenty now.
Just point it at you, Travis, because it's not going to pick you up unless you point it at your, not that one. Yeah.
This one.
That's one. Yeah.
Thank you. Travis Tebow, DPW director for the town of Paxton. Impacts, first off, we're at an 18.25% reduction. We will be having a vacant seat position as of the end of this week. We will not be filling that position, so that we will be running to a 6-man staff. We're going to see some pretty drastic cuts. Other than that, that's our impact for staffing at 18.25%. With the exception for our regular 40 hours, we'd be looking at a pretty significant decrease in overtime. So our overtime line items cover outside of snow and ice stuff, cover everything from doing burials on the weekends, after-hour work. If we get called in for a motor vehicle struck an animal and the deceased needs to be removed, down trees, so on and so forth. So because we had to cut our overtime line item, we will only be responding to emergency calls for items like down trees, where it's going to be a public safety issue. Yeah, that's right. So it's, for an impact, if an animal gets struck on the side of the road, it's going to stay there until the next business hour. The following morning, or if it's over the course of the weekend, it'll be the next Monday. We're going to have to stop all weekend burials. This has not been voted upon by the cemetery commissioners as of yet, but it will be discussed at our next cemetery commission meeting. Above and beyond that, we're looking at cuts kind of across the board. We're going to have a reduction in our equipment maintenance line item, which, as many of you know, the equipment that we're currently working with, a good large portion of it's in tough shape. We'll be removing the line painting and guardrails from our budget. This is something that Chapter 90 funds can be utilized for. Anytime we use something, utilize the Chapter 90 funding if it's approved by MassDOT for anything other than roads, we're then taking away from the repairs or rebuilding of our roadways in the town of Paxton. So on top of that, because of the equipment maintenance and repair line items that we're looking to reduce that line item by, we're going to have no choice but to look into utilizing Chapter 90 funding for purchasing equipment this year as well. I know it was recommended previously by the capital equipment, by the capital department, and I'm hesitant to do it, frankly, because I don't want to see the roads in town destroyed, and that's what's going to happen. The more we utilize Chapter 90 funds for such items as guardrails, line painting, purchasing capital equipment, that's the less money we can put into the roadways in town here, and The older they get, the worse shape they get in. With that said, we also are going to have to decrease asphalt, tar line items, coal patch line items, so we're going to do what we can with what we're allotted. We're going to attempt to utilize the Chapter 90 funding to the best of our ability. The town does put money forth towards repairing roadways, so there will still be some paving done each and every year, or road treatments or something of the like to help maintain the roadways. But it's not enough funding. In the long run, it's not enough. That's why I've always been hesitant to utilize the Chapter 90 funding for pretty much anything else but roadways, as was my predecessor. But this is where we're at, right? So we need to make the sacrifices that we need to make, and in order for us to be able to make the repairs to the equipment, we're going to have to replace some of said equipment. From the highway perspective, we're still going to plow roads, we're still going to mow roadsides, we're still going to sweep roads, we're still going to try our darndest to do everything that we can to meet all state and federal requirements, to do as good of a job as we can with shorter staff than we've had in the past. From the cemetery perspective, I personally was of the mindset that cemetery is a small budget, and I didn't feel comfortable with us trying to allocate funds for fertilization and providing water at the tap at the cemetery when other departments are looking at layoffs or more important cuts, in my opinion. I'm recommending you'll see it's a much more significant decrease than 18.5%. So I'm looking at like a 60% reduction in that small line item, because I thought those couple of $1,000s could be better utilized somewhere else. So I have spoke with a couple of our commissioners individually. It will be something that's going to need to be discussed at the next cemetery commissioners meeting. But I think what we're looking at is trying to push off some of the work that we do, like pouring foundations. Make the monument companies do that, as opposed to us purchasing this concrete mix and us doing the work. Providing water at a tap. Residents that are planting flowers in the cemetery, it's fairly easy to bring a gallon of water with you to water some flowers. Small items like that. We currently have been fertilizing and liming that Moreland Cemetery. It looks good. Is it a necessity? I don't think so. So we're going to do the same thing with the town common. The other properties that we've been fertilizing and liming, yes, it makes the common area, the center of town, look much more beautiful when everything's vibrant and green. But I think jobs are more important personally. So that's how I'm looking at things at this moment.
Just a quick question, Travis.
Sure.
Thank you for that. So you have a position that organically that somebody's leaving?
Yes.
Okay, so that position won't be refilled, so there is a reduction.
It will not be refilled. So there'll be no cost for unemployment in not filling that position. Is it going to hurt? Absolutely, it's going to hurt. I'm pretty sure I've been telling all of you folks for the past several years we need 2 more staff members. So yeah, it's going to hurt, but we'll do what we have to do. It's going to take us longer to plow roads, to maintain roads. It's going to take us longer to do everything. But we're going to do everything that we can to keep going and do the job that we're here to do.
Right. And I think we've all, I'll let you go, we've all heard loud and clear that the DPW fleet of equipment is old and in really in deplorable shape. Is that fair?
Not all of it, but there's a large portion of it that's in pretty tough shape. Yeah.
So there'll have to be replacement of that equipment at some point. And I think the oldest piece of equipment dates back to 1989.
Yes.
Which really is a long time ago when you think about a piece of equipment, a dump truck. I mean, so there's going to have to be some. Thanks.
Any comments, questions, concerns while I'm up?
Travis?
Sure.
Can I steal your mic, Peter, for a second? Sorry.
Of course.
I want to talk to you. Travis, can you just tell us what your staffing level is when you are fully staffed and what your staffing level would be minus this one person just for the highway side, excluding yourself and Tiffany?
Yep, so we're typically 7 individuals. When the department's fully staffed, we'll be going down to 6 individuals. With those 6 individuals, we maintain all the roadways all year round. The highway department assists the water department with water main repairs. We maintain all the recreational fields and facilities throughout town. We maintain all the cemetery fields and facilities throughout town. We also deal with the stormwater system throughout town, which has become a much bigger deal over the last decade or so with the MS4 permit, more so over the last 5 or 6 years for the town of Paxton. It's designed to help improve the natural waterways, and we're doing everything we can to try to make certain that we're meeting those requirements. So, yeah, 7-person down to a 6-person. So wintertime, we're gonna have to readjust the way we plow the roads, how we maintain everything. It's gonna take longer. So we'll do what we can with what we have.
Thanks.
Yes, sir.
Nick, do you have a microphone?
Yeah, of all people,
15 Tanglewood Road, Paxton. My question is...
Nick, of all people not to have a microphone.
Please, I don't want to hear me. Hey, Travis, help me out from the past, thank you. So how much time do you spend sweeping the roads?
So we try to sweep the roads twice a year, at least in the MS4 portion of the town. That's part of the requirement for the MS4 permit, is that we do that portion of the road twice a year, spring and fall. It depends on how much material's down there. This past winter, we had a lot of ice. We actually ended up treating some of the roads throughout some of those icy conditions with sand this year. It's the first time we've done that in 6 or 8 years. So there was a little bit more material down on the ground this year, but frankly, we needed some grit in a couple of those storms.
Right. Well, the reason why I said that is because my neighborhood, they came through a couple of weeks ago and the roads were clear, but yet they're sweeping it. And I noticed that in our area, we haven't had a lot of sand. So are you looking at those roads prior to sending someone out and do the town? Because I think that it was wasteful in our neighborhood twice this year, actually. So I'm not criticizing, I'm just saying, hey, you know, we're looking for time, money. Well, time is money.
So again, we're mandated through the MS4 requirements to sweep roads in the MS4 area. Just so happens your neighborhood is within the MS4 area. Regardless of whether it looks clean to you by your naked eye, we're still going and cleaning the road edge. We're still attempting to find the road edge. You can get onto most of the roads throughout town. You can probably take a shovel and dig up a couple of inches of asphalt that's covered by debris just over the years. So we attempt to try to keep up to the road edges, but especially in the MS4 areas, we're required to do that twice a year.
Thanks, Brad.
Any further questions? Yes, sir.
Are there any functions that could be fulfilled through people volunteering? Would it be possible, for instance, to fertilize and put lime down on the green by a group who would volunteer to do that and raise the funding for the fertilizer?
Some of that is already happening at this moment in time with the garden club maintaining some of the flower beds throughout town. I'm personally, I don't feel as though I'm the person to answer that question. I think that would be the town administrator or the select board, because I think there could be some potential for liability there. So I think that would be something that would need to be approved by the select board.
We also just have to be careful because we have collective bargaining units at play. And sometimes what happens is if you're doing or providing responsibilities and job functions that are usually assigned to an employee who's covered by a collective bargaining agreement, it can be it can cause a problem. We can end up with a grievance and have other issues. We ran into it just the same as even when we have seasonal employees, because seasonal employees are not union members, so we have to be careful what assignments we give them. But the union tends to be very mindful whenever you're taking away union work and giving it to an employee or a volunteer or someone who's a part-time non-union member. So those are all things for consideration, but we always appreciate the volunteering and folks willing to help. So thank you.
Heather, I just have a question. Is that like a cut and dry thing? Is there, I get it. I've managed people in a union environment and everything, but like, is there some common sense we can apply there where like somebody could put fertilizer? Like, can we figure that out, or is it kind of a
I think the answer is somebody can donate the fertilizer and
right.
DPW.
Yeah.
I mean, I get that there's certain things like that. We don't want somebody just running in and jumping on an ambulance. That might be frowned.
I don't think so.
But if they want to put fertilizer down.
That was a fun example, Tony. I think, if anyone's interested, we have any ideas, I think this is a great probably offline conversation, because each question is going to have an answer of it depends.
Yeah.
Right? So
that's what I was trying to get at. Can we get to the answer ahead of time, or is it you have to do the work and find out if somebody gets mad and files a grievance?
Well, I think you can usually assess the situation and assess what's happening, and sometimes you can sit down with the union if there's a union at play. But for instance, like if someone wants to come and shred paper at town hall, great news. There's no unions involved in that action. We love volunteers, and
we can figure it out ahead of time.
Contact us, and we'd be happy to have you help.
Yeah, because that's a good suggestion.
Great question. I know Chief Pinchatori is eager to get up here at this microphone, so you.
Anything else? Any other questions, comments, concerns?
Travis, can I just comment about your comments? There was a lot said, a lot to take away from that. I'm sure everybody has their favorite line or their favorite point or otherwise. My favorite was you said, we'll do the best we can with the money we have.
That's all we can do.
That has to be the spirit of this whole thing. With this new norm. And I don't mean to take a page from Boston Celtic former coach Rick Pitino, but Megabucks is not walking through that door. And Wachusett Regional Reduced Assessment is not walking through that door. This is the money we have. So everybody, not just DPW, and I'm sure that you're speaking for a lot of other departments. We just simply need to do the best we can with the money we have this year. Until there's a change, but there's no other money. We don't have additional funds. So the funds that we have has been spread out over these 29 departments. This is what we got to do. And I appreciate that comment, because I think that's a spirit that's got to flow through all of what we're trying to do here. We've got to do the best we can with the money that we have, period.
And somebody said in that April snowstorm we had that you were shoveling snow, and it was on Channel 5 in front of the town hall.
I don't know. I'm pretty frequently shoveling snow. I don't know about it being on
Somebody said it was on Channel 5. I didn't see it, but all right. Next.
So speaking of volunteers, where were you that day?
That's a great question. Now we're going to move to the fire department.
Any other questions,
police
comments?
department? Anybody? Oh, yeah, police is next.
Thanks,
Travis, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, good evening. Mark Savastner, Chief of Police. I'm going to try to keep this simple and as straightforward as I can. Right now, I have 8 bodies on my department. I'm supposed to have 10. We cut one last year. I had one that retired. I didn't backfill that knowing that this was coming up. With the 18.5% budget cuts, I can keep a officer on until December, and then I have to let him go. That will put my staffing down to 7 full-timers. Even with the 8 that I have, I cannot provide 24-hour coverage. It's impossible. I don't have the extra money and overtime to do that. There will be at least 2 shifts that there'll be no officers on, and if anyone calls in sick, I'll backfill as much as I can until the money runs out. When that 7th officer leaves and puts me down to 7, most likely that night shift is going to have to be shut down. Again, like Travis said, we're doing the best we can, but with these cuts, I cannot provide the same level as I'm providing now, and if this is the new norm, then so be it. But I will not be able to provide 24-hour coverage to the town of Paxton with the budget that's presented. I'll backfill as much as I can. I'll try to keep 2 officers on when possible, but it's really becoming a tough time. I have one of my senior officers who's been in this department 13 years that sent me an email today saying he's looking at another agency. So it's not just the officers that are getting laid off, it's my last senior officer is looking to go to a neighboring town. I can't replace that experience, and I'm not getting anybody to replace that body. It's not a sad story here. I mean, we heard this last year. It's the same thing this year. So whatever the decision is made and whatever the amount of cuts come down the road, I will adjust my department accordingly. But just so everybody understands, I can't be held liable to provide 24-hour coverage if I don't have the money. And it's pretty much that simple.
When you say shut down the night shift, so you're saying starting in December, there'll be no overnight police coverage whatsoever?
Correct.
And last year, you talked about not being able to patrol, but only to respond.
Correct.
Is that going to be the case again this year?
No.
Okay.
The numbers that are up there, we can play the shell game, and we can move numbers around, and I can move, money out of gas or a little bit out of overtime to keep an officer an extra month, but it's not going to fix the problem. So at least with the money that I have in those line items, my day shift and my 3 to 11 can still operate like they do today. So we'll still be out on patrol on days and eves. Night shift, come December, you're just not going to see anybody. We'll rely on mutual aid from state police if they're available, and there's not much more I can do with that. I wish there was a way to manufacture bodies that would donate their time, but that's not reality. Any questions?
Chief,
Sorry,
go ahead, Jeff. No, go ahead.
Just to clarify, so we're current staff of 7?
Current right now, I have 8.
8,
Yeah.
and it was 9 with the...
It was 10 before we cut last year.
Got it.
That put me down to 9. 1 retired in January. I didn't have anybody apply anyway, so it's not like I held off, but it's 8 right now. I just had 1 that just graduated Academy May 6th. He's the one that I will be keeping on until December.
Yeah.
We wasted, 7 months waiting for him, to get out, and now his position is at risk.
Right. Now, does that 8, that does not include command staff, right?
It does.
Oh, it does?
That's everybody.
That's you?
That's me. That's me, the lieutenant, sergeants, detectives, everybody.
That's what I thought. Okay.
Yeah.
Make sure I got that
So
right.
we will be down to 7 total on police.
Okay.
Those levels, unfortunately, those levels are 1990 levels.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Go ahead.
Chief, we get an immediate budget problem this evening, but I think at our last Finance Committee meeting, we were saying we need to address and focus on FY26, but at the same time, we got to look forward for FY27 so that we're not having the exact replication of this next year. And don't mean to put words in Tony's mouth, but he alluded to the fact, and we made mention of it last week at our Finance Committee, maybe the collective bargaining agreements need to be looked at, another set of eyes or something done differently. We also mentioned Chapter 90 funds. Travis just mentioned it a little bit this evening. Maybe it doesn't get us, the panacea that we want it to get us to, but at least talk about it and let's do something about it. I think the Anna Maria contract needs to be looked at because there's not only an agreement, which we've all complimented as being the model of its kind, but there's a budget that's prepared every year, and to my knowledge, the FY26 budget has not yet been prepared. There's changeover of presidents, and maybe I don't know how that's going to survive, but I think when the FY26 Anna Maria contract and budget is looked at, I think that's got to be squeezed to see whether or not there's more money that can fall out of that to the town to get you that particular police officer that you're talking about right now. It's a big number. FY '25, it was $761,000. I don't know if it's going to be $750 next year or $780, but that's a big number for us to at least get under the hood to find out, is there a way to squeeze that to get you the officer that's going to give us that full 24-hour coverage? I defer to the select board because it's a town agreement. I defer to you because I think if I'm not mistaken, the police chief or the lieutenant devised the budget. I'm just sending a message that I personally think there's money there to be had to help the town more than the agreement currently does.
It's up to the select board what they decide. I don't sign those things, but I disagree with that. I think they're doing a heck of a lot for this town. They pay for their services, and we can utilize those people when they're not on a call. How much money is up there? Who knows how long they stay afloat? I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball, but I'm telling you that the town gets a lot from Anna Maria. Those officers, we don't pay for them. You know, Mark, we've been getting them for 15 years. We utilize them. Now, we can't always utilize them, but when there's 2 guys on staff, I can. Again, what happens in our town affects up there also. Even though they're under contract, it could still affect their staffing, where their budget increases. So I've been running that budget for 15 years, so I'm pretty familiar with how it runs, and I've been running that program for 15 years. And I keep hearing about Anna Maria and how more and more can come to the town. That's for the select board to decide, but I think the town's doing okay with Anna Maria. You could try squeezing them, you know, if it was words. If they pull out with new president, then where are we going to be? You lose those 5 officers too. I don't know, but that's above my pay grade. That's for these 5 in the town administrator. Whatever they decide, I will make work and work with you all. Again, you are the powers to be. You decide what the best avenue is for Anna Maria. We got 1 year left on that contract. If you want to renegotiate it, that is your right, and that's really what you should do.
Well, I'm not suggesting it's not the place this evening anyways, to renegotiate the agreement. The agreement's a good agreement, and it runs through June 30th, 26, but annually, every single year, there's a single-year budget that's prepared.
Correct.
That the Finance Committee has never seen. And maybe someone's going to say it's not the place for us to see. I'm saying under the circumstances, well, maybe it should be. Maybe we should be privy to see it before it's signed. Maybe the select board should share it with us, because I respect the service that's provided, and they're a great corporate citizen. It's a great agreement. I don't want to fracture it. But I think I'm going to say that let's agree to disagree. Okay. I think there's a lot of money in that agreement that could help the town.
All right, and from me working with them for 15 years, I'm going to tell you that there's not a lot of money, and if you push too hard, you will lose that contract. And I think I have the pulse on that because I'm the one that sits down with the president. But again, it's above my pay grade. Whatever the town decides is in the best interest, I'll be fine with, and we'll see what happens. Again, we have bigger, in my opinion, we have such big issues this year that, to me, Anna Maria, that's not affecting our deficit is really a moot point. And, you know, I've been talking about it till I'm, since, you know, blue in the face over the last 2 years. So I'll do whatever the select board advises me to do, and whatever you guys decide, you know, I'll make it work.
Mark, can I say that? Man, just real quick, I'm not sure why people won't share things with you, Mark, but if there's something I can do to help get that shared with you, I certainly will.
Oh, yeah, right here.
I just...
It's been shared with me.
Oh, I thought you said they wouldn't share it with the finance.
We don't have an FY26 one yet.
Oh, I mean the FY26. Oh, okay, well, it sounded like you were saying nobody has shared it with you.
No.
But the part that I want to get to is the fact that, you know, it's a pay-for-service contract. So I have a contract with Ford's Hometown Service, and I pay them to do a service. I hope they're not sitting around saying, how can we squeeze more out of Ogren to pay for Ford's hometown service when I'm paying them to provide a certain service on my property. That's pretty much the way the AMC contract, and please correct me if I'm wrong, Chief, but that's pretty much what the AMC contract says is you're going to provide these services, we're going to pay you for those services. So I'm not sure what money
So let me
might be
sum it up.
available.
The agreement is wonderful, the budget is flawed. So I would challenge the Select Board to prepare an FY26 budget and bring it back and let the public see it and let the Finance Committee see it. And at that particular point, we'll determine whether or not some money can't be shifted differently than the way that the budget exists right now. That's my only point. In my personal opinion, this is terribly flawed. The agreement is flawless. The budget is flawed.
Can I respond to that, please? Since I prepared a budget? And I'm not going to get into a he said, she said thing here, but what experience do any of you have running a police department? If you don't mind me asking.
Chief, that's not fair. We have a lot of experience
Running a police
preparing
department.
budgets.
Running a police department.
Yeah, but we have a
Big
lot of
difference.
experience preparing budgets.
Do you know how to provide safety? Do you know what staffing is for safety?
I don't want to.
Okay, well, you just threw me under the bus saying that the budget is flawed. I present the budget. Where is it flawed? I know what the safety is that they need.
So I don't think now's the time to solve. I think.
Nor do I.
I think the question is actually simple, and I think it's valid. Is just when this happens next time, can we be a part of it? We're not going to fix the past. We're not going to. And I'm certainly not going to try to go nose to nose with you on running a police department. So, but I mean, sometimes there's a lot of benefit to having somebody involved in the process who actually isn't an expert in it, and that doesn't mean they should make all the decisions. But I think we're all going to start fighting about something that's not an unreasonable request, which is when this happens again next time, can we just be a part of it? We might have some good input. We might have some stupid input. I don't know. But I don't see the harm in us having some input, whether it's just Mark or whoever, So it's very personal to people, which is obvious, So, and you spend a lot of time and years working on this.
Well, I'm losing people up there too.
No, I know.
That's the problem. Yeah, is it personal? Yeah, because it's affecting my department.
Right. It is. And affecting your department affects everybody who lives in town. So we get that. And I don't think Mark's request is unfair, though, that next time, can we just be a part of the process? Because we might have some good input, we might have some good insight. I don't want to get into it's just maybe a stupid thing, but at my work a lot of time, it's a stupid word, we use people called like a naive expert. We literally bring people into departments who know nothing about that department. And believe it or not, it works. I hated it when it happened to me. I thought it was the stupidest thing, but it actually works. You never admit it to that person's face. You call them names, but later on you're at home and you're like, they actually had some good input and you can use it. So, I mean, now's not the night to figure that out, but I think it's a good.
You will all get a copy of this year's budget.
Yeah.
It's going to be last minute, honestly.
Yeah.
It's going to be probably June 30th.
And I think the ask is just can we be involved before it's signed, before it's executed, maybe give some input to the process.
If the FinCom is looking to expand their role, sure, that's fine.
Yeah, I mean, I don't, whatever. I mean, I think it's good to be involved in that process. I'm not sure how that expands the role.
But that is next spring, so Mark, if you're all set, maybe we can get.
Mark, I had one question, because I try and think if my dad was looking at this, the questions he would ask. Because when we say 8, you have 8 guys or 7 guys. If you go on the website, there's 20 people listed.
Yeah.
So just clarify, the 8.
You have 8 on the town. Again, this is where the department is kind of.
Right, I think that's why it's important.
Yeah. So you have 5 up Anna Maria.
Right.
You have probably.
Which fall under the public safety officer.
And you got 6 part-time.
Yeah.
Now we're down to 4 part-time. So the website might not have been updated. And just so you know, with policing, it's changed over the last 2 years, 3 years. So prior, I used to be able to utilize some of those part-timers because they were sworn. They're not sworn anymore. You can't find a part-time police officer. I have 1 of my 4 guys.
Did you get them sworn in? Or how,
no, with post requirements and stuff, they're not eligible.
Okay.
You have to go to a full-time police academy. So the likelihood of you getting anybody part-time that's sworn, unless they retired, you're not getting anyone. Yeah. So.
And the people who are listed as detectives, sergeants, things like that, is that part of the count? Or can they fill any of the, can they help to?
Everybody's cross-trained.
Okay.
Everybody on the department is cross-trained, so I can take somebody from town, they can work the college. I can take someone from the college, they can work the town. Everybody gets cross-trained. That's part of the 10-week FTO. So.
But that's already part of your plan.
Yeah.
So if somebody looks on here, that's already part of your plan. Yeah.
Problem is like Tyler, that I just hired. Just got out of the academy. He's running through his FTO. What am I gonna get, 2 months out of him? So I waste 8 to 10 weeks on an FTO, then he's gone. And then we start all over. So if I do hire a body to replace him, it's 10 more weeks before they get in. So.
Okay, no, I appreciate that. And my last question, when you said about, no, the night shift's not covered, so if I call, my call goes to dispatch, like what's that process? Like what's gonna happen? That might even be for you to answer.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, it's mutual aid.
Yeah.
So they'll go to dispatch will call state police.
Yeah.
They're coming from Brookfield.
Okay.
I'm gonna tell you right now that state police runs 2 guys.
Mm-hmm.
The likelihood of like them having someone in Paxton is slim to none. So.
And then what would happen if there were literally the state police guys were out and?
You're gonna wait for another trooper,
to
be honest with you.
They come from where? Like what would be the fallback from there?
They could call Holden.
Okay.
Brookfield covers us.
Okay.
So, other towns are not coming.
Yep.
Because mutual aid is, from towns, is if I'm on a call. But if we have nobody on, there's no mutual aid coming. So. Any other questions?
Chief, can...
No, thank you.
Just one. Can you just remind us, I know we had the out of guidance numbers, probably a good guess, but what is the cost per police officer? So if we had to hire someone, say they were in the newer end, right?
Yep.
What's the cost for hiring that person for wages, a guesstimate, include educational incentive in it, any other things we need for collective bargaining requirements to fully equip this person to succeed?
Starting out, police officers are roughly around 67,000. You're looking at anywhere from 5,000 to 12,000 for education. That being said, he could be Quinn certified. If he came from a Quinn town, we got to pay him Quinn, so that education can go up. But saying that he's a brand new, out of the academy guy, no Quinn, no nothing, you're looking at 67, and then whatever his education is. So you can range anywhere from 72 to 84,000.
Okay, so if we ballpark a number around 80, we're in like a happy place for calculating the average cost of a police officer on the newer end.
Yeah, and then you got to figure out all your outfitting.
Okay.
That could be anywhere from 2,500 to 5,000.
Okay, so say 90,000 and we're in a good number. Thank you.
You're welcome. Go ahead.
I follow up on the night shift.
Can we grab a mic?
I'll come to her. No.
Sorry.
Yep, and just say your name.
Yes, Erin Otmar, 232 West Street. I'm just wondering, regards to night shift, what proportion of calls tend to come in after, say, 7 p.m., 7 p.m. to 7 a.m.? Because just in my experience of when I've had to call, I've lived here for 10 years, there's been a number of times I've had to call. They've all happened between 7 p.m. and 7 a.m. Domestic violence issues with people, neighbors, whatever it be, friends, or emergencies, or, breaking and entering, or car accidents, or whatever. I live on West Street. I have to call all the time after 7 p.m. So if you could just speak a little bit to how much activity happens in the town between 7 and 7 when people would be off.
I'm going to tell you that there's no way to kind of say this is exactly what happens on it. You're going to have most of your drunk drivers, most of your accidents. Domestics happen all the time. Breaking and entering happens all days, eves. More breaking and entering happens during the day because people are at work, traditionally. But yeah, we get our calls for service for nights. There's plenty, but I have certain requirements in my collective bargaining with the guys that would have to be impact bargain to move shifts. And then when we start moving from, say, the day shift, well, now you don't have enough for coverage on days.
So basically, like the night shift, what are the hours for the,
Yeah, 10 to
like, what do you consider?
10 to 6, 10 p to
10 to 6, okay. So 8 hours a day, there'd
Yep.
be no coverage at all
Correct.
come December.
Correct. I don't have the bodies.
Yeah.
You know, it's not anything else, it's just no bodies to put out there.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
Yep.
And I'd like to add one thing. We have to keep in mind as well, we border one of the largest cities in the state, and that's Worcester. So no night shift from those hours. We have people out of Worcester that are going to come through Paxton, and we're not going to have police readily available. So just want to add that point.
Night shift, we had.
Microphone, Nick, microphone.
Yeah, this one if you do.
Is it on? Can you hear me? Okay. So, night shift, we had a junior prom party in our neighborhood about 3 weeks ago. And the 17-year-old girl that hosted it called the police at 1:45 in the morning because someone came over who was a minor, drunk, stoned, and they had to, two police had to pull up and escort the guy out. I'm sure you called the parents and stuff. I don't know what happened, but that was 1:30, 1:45 in the morning. So 7 to 10 or whatever, you know, that's amateur hour. So you get into a little bit later, you know, what we had done. You know, I'm not going to go out and drag this kid out of the party or whatever. And he was screaming out loud. You know, I think that fire, police, ambulance are the keys for a successful, healthy town, period, you know? I mean, I can snowball my driveway down the street, that's fine, but, you know, when it comes to my safety and my family's safety and neighbor safety, I think it's paramount. So, you know, we're nickel and diming, you know, oh, can you get an hour shift here or how much there? But I think those are the things that are really predominant with our community.
Chief, can I ask another question? Sure. So going back to the cost of an officer, so when you had spoke a little earlier, you mentioned that we're going to start the fiscal year with 8, but based on funding, we would lose 1 come end of December?
Right.
So theoretically speaking, would we be able to retain that position if we were able to adjust the budget by $45,000, which would be half of a full, so that would get us the rest of the year?
Yes.
Okay.
And again, the reason that if I took from overtime to do it, then I can't backfill shifts.
Yep.
And then we're just going to have single-man shifts or no coverage later on in the year.
Okay. And then the last question, so with adding that officer back to the 8 hours, that allows us to continue night shift?
No, it continues to, we'll have probably 2 shifts with nobody on.
Okay, 2
Could
night
be
shifts
3,
per
yeah.
week?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it would add more night shift than what we
Correct.
would have if we were down to
Correct.
staff?
Yeah.
And how would you determine those 2 nights? You'd look at statistics or part of it's staffing? and
Well,
combination?
again, they're on 4 and 2,
Okay,
so they're going to rotate. And that means that 2 nights a week, there's nobody on. And then 2 to 3 nights a week, there's going to be 1 guy on. And then 2 nights, there will be 2. That's in their contract, so it's collective bargaining. I don't have an option to say, hey, I'm moving your shift, and then if I do, then it costs money. So.
And that's a point where I know, maybe it's not a popular opinion, but again, collective bargaining keeps coming up. Like, it doesn't feel like we have thought ahead to these scenarios. And I know there's limitations, but we're a small town. We've got to think about this stuff. And when I went back and looked at the last 10 years, like, I thought I had the numbers here. I don't know what to do with it, but it's crazy. It's crazy. Like, our population hasn't grown. Our revenue is the lowest growing statistic we have. Our revenue doesn't grow. Our population doesn't grow. Our median age is actually going down. People are getting younger. You know, we have a younger population. Our retirement, our pension liability has grown 143% since 2015. Revenue, 20-some percent. Public safety, 40%. School, 34%. Like, we can't have all of our expense categories grow 10% more than our revenue category. 80% of our revenue comes from property taxes. More people aren't moving in. Our population is the same as what it was. It sucks, but we got to, that's the only reason when I brought up collective bargaining is just, we have to have a more long-term approach to it. I wasn't involved before. There's a lot of extenuating circumstances, COVID, things like that. People's incomes have gone down, people have lost jobs, the people in Paxton don't vote the way they did, and they're not able to, I don't even say they're not able, they're not willing to part with money like they were in the past. So that's why it came up for me in the last meeting was collective bargaining. It's like, I understand it's a difficult process. I just think we have to really take all these things into consideration. Maybe we do take this into consideration, but somehow it's gotten away from us to where we keep running into that limitation. And
So if I can respond to that, so having been involved in the collective bargaining for the police union for the last 11, 12 years, what we were seeing happen is that all the towns around us, especially with the implementation of post, and what we're seeing in the post-Floyd era, is that we're not, people don't want to be police officers.
Yeah.
And so there is a dearth of people out there to be police officers, which means once, it's a supply and demand issue, right? So the supply goes down and the cost of a police officer goes up. And over these last several years, that's what we've seen. And so we were actually behind the 8 ball here in town with our wages that we were paying police officers as compared to other towns. And so we actually had to do some correction here just to be able to retain the staff that we have. So really, I don't know that it's the collective bargaining or the wages that we're paying the officers that are the issue, right? It's an unfortunate situation where we may have to.
I just want to be clear, I wasn't talking about wages, I'm talking more about work rules and stuff like that.
I mean,
it seems like the work rules are what limit us from, the way, I'm not saying anything about the wages. You guys should all make $1.5 million if we had the money to do it,
It's the same thing, though, because they all compare their collective bargaining agreements to the other town's collective bargaining agreements.
Yeah.
And so unfortunately, the times that we're living in right now is an officer will leave and go to another town because they like the agreement better.
No, I totally.
Yeah. So.
But I just want to be clear, I'm not necessarily talking about the salary, especially for patrol.
Yeah, I don't mean to put any words in.
No, I mean just more the work rules. That's a part of the process.
Yeah.
Any way we can think like, hey, if we get into a situation where we, have to lay someone off, which we don't want to do.
Yeah.
Like, do we have, does this work rule prevent us from being able to giving you the flexibility to not get rid of somebody else,
The problem is that.
And there may not be any room there.
With all these tough times.
Yeah.
We only cut one position last year.
Yeah.
But I lost 9 positions over 2.5 years.
Yeah.
So when these tough times come up, all employees hear it. Whether it's police, whether it's fire, whether it's our town hall, they hear it and the panic sets in.
Right.
And we do all the work we can, working together to try to keep everything afloat. But sometimes it's too late and the damage is done. Like I said, I got a 13, 14-year guy that's looking to jump ship. He's not getting laid off. There's no chance whatsoever that I'm getting to him. Yet, he's going to take a chance somewhere else, apply somewhere else. I just lose 14 years of experience in Paxton. So we're all facing the same thing. Work together. Any other questions?
I just have one other question. Chief, you may not have the answer right now. The 18.25 reduction, is there a way, either Heather or yourself, could find the number that would eliminate all nights being active? So take that line out as well as the overtime, what that 18 goes down to. If you were to have night shift covered 7 days a week with your overtime, is it 15, 13, 12%? What is that number? And you don't have to, obviously, but I'd like to see that number.
This year I made it work because, and I can give you the answer. I'm going to need the 9th guy. The outer guidance had the 10th guy that we were at. It is what it is. In tough times, you're going to make tough decisions, so we don't hire him. But I need 9 guys because of the fact that this year I had the funding. I couldn't hire the bodies, but I had the extra funding. So I was able to backfill those shifts with overtime, keeping everything running the same. I'm not going to have the funding for that body that I couldn't fill.
You're thinking, I'd like to see that number too. That'd be interesting to see that because what's the, this is similar with what Mike did last year, right? If we got to that number and it's a lower number, maybe then there's some ability to say, oh, okay, now you're 18 and a half, but does that drop it to 17 or does that drop it to 8? You know, does that, that might, hopefully it's not a painful exercise. I'd like to see that number too, because then we might, maybe the other part of it's coverable somewhere, you know?
I'm going to tell you that it's probably going to be around, it's probably going to be 130,000 roughly.
Yeah.
You know, and that's in the ballpark because the extra of the 90,000, the out of guidance was going to give you some of the body, you know, the 10th body and a little bit of the contractual. So you're probably looking at, you know, if I trim a couple other areas, you're probably still going to look like I'm going to need 130,000 there. So the 18.5, whatever that comes down to.
Thank you, Chief.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
So I do have that number up there for the total. So if you add the 45,000, Chief, for the half year, and then the 90,000 for a full year person, it would change the bottom budget from the 18.25% figure to from 1,051,187, increasing it by 135,000 to the 1,186,187.
Heather, can you run the quick math on that? What's that percentage reduction from his original budget?
Yeah. Okay.
No pressure, Heather.
19%.
We're all watching.
No, it shouldn't be 19%.
Should be less than 18.
It should be, yeah.
Should be
Try that
lower.
again. Percentages.
No pressure doing a Microsoft
no
Excel
pressure.
formula.
The whole town's just watching.
I know, okay. Hold on, we're gonna do this. Pause. Please hold. What do you have, Carol?
No, I'm saying, I'll get the 129,8,909 figure, or we can use the starting point.
Yeah, that's what I was using.
Yeah.
9%.
9%?
Since I went down, I did.
Chief Pinchatori, do you want to, no disrespect to the other department heads, but this would round out the big three, so to speak? And we could have the other department heads follow you.
Well, good evening tonight. Mike Pinchatori, Fire Chief, Town of Paxton. It's kind of awkward for me to be up here. Usually never up here at all. Night's still young, Mark.
Not if you're 50 years old, it's not.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, you must be getting tired. We do actually have a better chance of Larry Bird walking through that door than getting an override pass, though, I think statistically speaking. So I want to thank Mark and Travis, just speaking before us. Nobody wants to be in this position. Every year I try to be very responsible with my budget. I am a taxpayer as well. I know the pain. I understand the pain. I grew up in this town. I've lived in this town for 40 years, not 50, Jeff. So I know, I've seen it grow. It is tough to get these things done and get these cuts. We've never had a surplus year that I can remember. We've always been working behind the scenes, reducing 1% to 2%, sometimes 3 or 4% to make these numbers work. This year, by far the biggest cut that we'll have to face. And that's not easy. I can't do my job without the other departments. I know they can't do their job without me. Sometimes I can be a pain in the butt about it. Library alarm systems ring a bell, you know, no pun intended. But to kind of just touch base a little bit on something Mark Savasta said with the state police. When we went through these budget cuts, refresh my memory, Chief Savasta, 6-7 years ago, we didn't have Saturday coverage, right? Was that, no police officers on Saturdays. Police officers don't come, state police troopers do not come to medical calls to support the ambulance crews. So a lot of what we do, and this kind of goes back to Tony's point about we see these increases in public safety over the last 10 years. The public has demanded our service that much, and then some, over the last 10 years. One of the big calls we do is mental health crises. It's, no pun intended, insane how many we do per year. Without police officers there, even with police officers there sometimes, I've dealt with injuries on my crews. I've been assaulted myself. Just this past weekend, we had one in the middle of the road, if anybody was down by House on Saturday afternoon. 2 of my EMTs, my firefighter EMTs were assaulted during that, okay? We're not gonna see the state police here. And if they do show up, it's not gonna be for 20 minutes. Same with a mutual aid ambulance, same with a mutual aid fire truck. We're a minimalistic department, same as the DPW and the police department. We give you the bare minimum that we can, but guaranteed it is the best that we can. Right now at 18.25%, I can't give you the bare minimum, which means I cannot give you the best, okay? So what that'll do is I have a member who is retiring medically, suffered a cardiac injury on duty. This past year, we had to cut and reduce our budget by $60,000 from FY24. So it left some staffing issues. We had to lay off 12 call members. So we didn't have the hands available on calls. So this member's retiring, so we won't be filling his position. I'll have to lay off another full-time position as well. So that's 2 positions that will leave gaps in coverage. On the ambulance, on fire. We will have to request mutual aid when someone calls 911 for that. Now, there is a lot of mutual aid that goes around on fire departments. You see it on a daily basis. We're busy. Just our in-town calls, I believe, are about 10% higher than they were last year. So everyone around us is at least twice the size of the town of Paxton. So they're twice as busy as us. Some of these towns don't staff as well as Paxton does, so Paxton gets pulled into certain towns like Leicester and Spencer on multiple occasions per week. So there's no ambulances coming from there a lot of times if we have to call them. Same with Rutland and Holden. Ocam doesn't even have an ambulance anymore. They rely on Rutland. So when Rutland goes to Ocam, guess where Paxton goes? To Rutland. It's kind of, and excuse the language, a half-assed regional service that we run throughout the county, throughout the state. This is how we operate in fire departments. So if I take a tooth out of the cog, it becomes an issue for you guys, town of Paxton. Now, I'm not here to make a sad story, scare anybody, but that's the reality. Wait times will increase. In 2007, when we took over EMS from the private service, we were waiting about 45 minutes for a private ambulance to get up the hill from the city. That's in good weather. No traffic. Depends on where they're coming. They could be coming from UMass. A lot of times our crews have to respond back from UMass across the city to handle a second call. So you will see those gaps, and that's without a doubt what comes of it. Another thing that we do, and Finance touched on this a little bit last week when it came down to permitting and stuff, we conduct fire inspections, and we have another revenue source for the town through permitting. By state law, under the fire marshal, who I am an authorized delegate, we have to conduct these inspections. My fire inspector will be forced to go from the daytime shift back to an EMS shift, back to a fire shift, so 2 days a week, and I'll kind of push those inspections for which he's certified to, so maybe 1 or 2 days a week. Right now, we provide them 5 days a week. And we do this every time a home sells, every time a business opens or needs an annual inspection, liquor licenses, public assembly inspections, such as churches, the college, Paxton Center School every August before they open, Anna Maria College every summer before they open. This is all required by law. Oil burners, oil tanks, propane tanks, you name it. Just about everything that your house touches, we have to inspect. It is a form of revenue, but we'll have to delay those to 1 day a week. This will delay things. This will delay home closings. This will delay liquor licenses being issued for businesses that rely on the liquor license annually. This will delay revenue coming into the town of Paxton. I will lose my admin. He works only 3 days a week right now. He's only part-time. But he allows the day-to-day of this department to operate. He's the first one that deals with the public generally, if it's a non-emergency issue. He gets the information. He makes sure that the bills go out for the inspections. He makes sure the permits get filed. He also does my payroll, my accounting, which I'm perfectly capable of, but it's just another added task that takes me away from assisting my guys in making sure the future of this department is secure and your safety is secure. We will see a decrease in fire response capability. We have this past year. Luckily, most of you haven't felt it, but we reduced our staff by 12 call firefighters to meet the budget cuts last year. We've been able to hire back 4, but on top of that, we have to, and we have, modified our run system. So when we go to large hazard buildings for emergencies, for fire emergencies, such as fire alarms, smoke in the building, we have to automatically start mutual aid. That becomes the backup for the on-duty crew, which is sometimes only 2 people in the fire truck. NFPA minimum, NIOSH minimum requires 4. We don't meet that standard now. So when the crew gets to a large building such as Paxton Center School and has to conduct a search, they may be waiting 20 minutes for the Holden engine or the Rutland engine to meet up with them, to back them up or get them out of the building. You will see a reduced revenue in ambulance billing. It's one of the bigger revenue factors in this town. We cap it around $400,000 a year when we apply it to the budget. Last year, I was able to put $582,000 into the budget to somewhat fix the issues. This year, I can't guarantee that because I was hoping to replace one of our ambulances, which is 11 years old, and that ambulance runs 3 to 4 times a day. If it becomes an issue, I won't replace the ambulance, but if we keep taking from the coffers of the ambulance revenue, which brings in about $400,000 each year, we're going to just dig ourselves another hole. One of our bigger issues, though, that you won't see, but I will, is the strain on the remaining staff. Morale's at an all-time low since last year. I had 2 people leave because of the pending cuts last year. I haven't been able to fully replace those 2 positions with 2 paramedics. I've been able to replace one with a firefighter EMT who's in paramedic school and another firefighter EMT advanced. Now, he can start an IV, maybe do an advanced airway, but he can't give you life-saving cardiac meds or electricity that you might need. This has increased burnout. This has increased morale, decreased morale, and obviously a higher turnover. People looking to get out, and I don't blame them. I can't guarantee them a future sometimes, year to year, and that's all I want. That's all I asked for last week. I want to be able to say, hey, guess what, guys? We do not have to battle up for an override this year. That would be nice. I'm okay. I would like to just increase my budget to 2.5%, maybe not even increase it. That would be awesome. I don't like to fight, but I would have been a boxer or a wrestler. But I like to fight. I'm a firefighter. I like to help. I like to solve problems. I'm willing to solve problems all day, every day. But those will be the impacts of an 18.25% cut. I don't want to get depressing, and it is what it is. Any questions for me?
Chief, real quick.
Yeah.
Just thank you for your detailed response, first of all. Second thing is, so how many shifts per week would we be looking at not having ambulatory care?
Right now, at a minimum 1 per week. They work a rotating schedule, so I don't know.
So it could be 1 or 2.
It could be 1 or 2, and we don't know the exact day per week as it rotates out.
And at 18.25%, will we be able to hold on to our ALS certification, or will we be a BLS service?
At 18.25%, we will hold on to it. Any deeper than that, and then I really got to get surgical with the scalpel, pardon the pun, and take that out of the purchase services, because that is a cost, it's a big cost driver.
I know it is. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Just a thanks, Chief. So at 18.25, we'd be losing 2 ambulance shifts a week, right? 1 to 2.
1 to 2, yeah, it depends. Because right now, at 18.25, we won't even be able to throw overtime at it. So right now, we don't have enough part-timers and call firefighters to throw at an open shift sometimes. So we have to we live and die by overtime in this business. And, you know, shift changes at 6 a.m. Heart attacks happen at 5 a.m., right? 4 to 5 a.m. It's an overtime. We can't just say, hey, hold on, we got a shift change in the middle of this, right? Overtime's a big issue in public safety. And I'm sure Chief Sebasta, like he said, it's one of those things. We can't just switch it off sometimes, but we'll have to, if the shift's open, someone's sick, someone's on vacation, we'll have to leave it open. We can't transport. We have to have a minimum of 2 people on an ambulance. For the ALS license, we have to have at least 1 paramedic. So those are the tough decisions. Last year, we had a ton of great suggestions come our way via social media and town meetings. They said, what about private EMS? Man, I'd love private EMS. EMS is in a downfall right now with people wanting to work there. You don't have the same problems as the police department. The pay's not there, it never has been. And nobody wants to get into healthcare. Nobody wants to work on an ambulance, especially after COVID, right? You know, we seem to go every 10 years. We got COVID. You know, 2014, we had a bit of an Ebola scare, if people remember. People in Dallas were starting to bring back Ebola. Right? People threatening to quit then because we just had to change a little bit in operational standards per the state, just in case somebody developed these issues. These are real problems that we have in public safety right now. There is a severe lack of sense of community. It's one of those things that we got to overcome and get creative. So,
just to follow up on that. So, excuse me, the loss of 1 to 2 shifts a week in ambulance coverage. What would be the loss, if any, in fire?
Would be almost the same, because you got to remember, we're a combination department, so it means we have full-time staff, we have part-time staff, and we have call staff. Okay? So when the tones go off here for a fire call, we have the on-duty staff, they're jumping on a truck, and the call staff that are coming in, and part-time staff that are coming in. The reason why we have full-time staff is because there's just not enough people available in the town of Paxton, certified firefighters and EMTs, to be able to put on the call side and staff the ambulance. We started out with a bunch of part-time people on the ambulance, but everybody knows a part-time job sometimes isn't the priority in our lives. We'd end up with vacant shifts, people no-shows. So it started to roll to that point where we needed full-time. Once we got there, we have to bring the call people back. So we've been trying for years. When I first became chief in 2021, the first 2 years, I set out, my goal was to get the staffing back to 40 people on the department. So 10 full-time, including myself, and then 30 call and part-time people on top of that. And we only pay the call people when they come back for calls and when they come back for training, so it's a great deal, but we still have to outfit them, we still have to send them for physicals. There's a bit of expense with that side as well. But slowly we lose. People come in for a couple of years, it's not something they want to do, they move, we try and get kids around 18, they go to college, they don't come back. So we can't, with call staff, I can't guarantee you right now that people are coming in. As much as I like to think they're a dedicated group, in which they are, the core of them are, lives happen. People are out to dinner, it's graduation season. Winter, man, most of them are landscapers or plow on the side. Snowstorm hits and a call comes out, it's usually me and the on-duty crew and my deputy chief. So it's not a guaranteed coverage. So to tell you that we can maintain fire coverage, I can't tell you we can't even do that.
So that would mean a couple shifts, 1 to 2 shifts a week, that there's no full-time firemen on it. It would be relying strictly on call.
Yep. And our call staff's been reduced, so, yeah.
Yep. And just to clarify, on the 1 to 2 shifts a week, when there's no ambulance coverage, I have chest pain at 4 a.m. Who's coming?
Rutland, hopefully. Holden, Leicester, Spencer, depends on who's available. We have a list. Usually what happens, I'll tell you, we did it the other day. I had to go take a second call because our second, usually on the weekends and stuff, we don't have a third person in the station. So I left to take a second medical. Nobody came back to staff the second ambulance, so it was by myself. So I said, okay, go down the list. Well, Rutland wasn't available. Holden wasn't available. We finally got, I think, Worcester EMS. So, and that takes time for the dispatcher to call down the list and say, to find out people aren't available. Whether they're doing it by radio over the shared channels or they're doing it by phone, it still takes a matter of time. And some of these places have to hit the tone because the dispatcher might not know if there's a crew in-house. So it's a tough thing. I can't tell you. Sometimes I get a mutual aid truck, 10 minutes. Could be 20 minutes. Like I said, the big reason we got into the ambulance business is it was taking in excess of 30 to 45 minutes. And it's only gotten worse. If anybody's traveled to the city, you drive to UMass. Who commutes to UMass every day into that neighborhood? 40-minute commute, 8 a.m.
Traffic, yeah.
So it's 8 miles.
Right?
So, look, it is what it is. I'm not super psyched about this. I applaud everybody for being here, and I believe this is the first select board meeting I've ever been to that we've had a baby. So that should say something right there.
Quiet one, too.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic, fantastic. Any questions? Yeah. Erin, yeah.
Can I?
So, I'm a math person, so I'm going to ask. So, the decreased hours, decreased mutual aid, decreased ambulance receipts, how much are you decreasing versus how much are you cutting the budget? Because everybody in town talks about ambulance receipts, they make the money, that's the revenue. Why would we ever cut the ambulance? That's the revenue making, but you're saying we're going to cut the ambulance receipts. So we're not just losing people, we're also losing revenue.
We're going to lose revenue, regardless. So I can tell you right now, Erin, we're actually, in FY24, we gave away, we called EMS mutual aid in to handle our calls 9 times, okay? So far this year, because of reduction in staff for second ambulance calls, we are at 26 times already to call in EMS mutual aid, and that's 189% increase over FY24. We're pretty good at covering everything and make sure our residents are covered, because really, on that second ambulance call, your neighbor's going to show up. He might be in work boots or something, but he's going to help you out. because he's on the department, but, you know, I've had to cut 12 of those guys last year, so going 18% is tough. You know, I'd like to fix this. I've already started to roll up my sleeves on my end to do what I can to try and keep everybody and everything else, but at this point, I can't, you know, without adding something.
I think that's a really important thing for people in town to understand, is that the revenue from ambulance receipts with these cuts is going to cut further revenue from the town, which is going to have to cut things further. We can't rely on ambulance receipts like people think that we can, just because that's the feedback I get is there's no way people are cutting EMS services. There's no way fire will be cut because that's the revenue making in the town. But that's not the case. So thank you for answering that.
And we're also, you know, revenue's part of what we live on, that 400,000. Really, you know, I like to tell people we bring in that 400,000 and $1.274 million budget, minus that 400,000, you know, you're paying 800,000 for this service, which is a great deal. But I can't guarantee that 400,000 every year, you know, when we start not being able to cover shifts when people get injured, right? So I had another firefighter EMT out from December, just came back last week from a shoulder injury. You know, the contract that starts in a month and a half, we were looking at rearranging the group so we had 3 people on per shift. And then one day was going to be covered entirely with part-time firefighter, EMT, paramedics for 3 people. So we would reduce the amount of harm we do to our people. EMS, you know, I had a fire chief tell me once, firefighting is the easy part. You know, EMS is that's the part where everybody gets injured. Weird body mechanics, moving someone out of a little bathroom, unconscious, limp. You know, you're using all your back. Whether you think you're using good lifting mechanics or not, forget it. You're not. So it is a manpower and woman power intensive job. It really is.
So Chief, can I follow up on a couple things just so we have apples to apples here? So originally you had mentioned a couple numbers and you probably mentioned a few more, but if you can just reiterate for us, so what is our current staffing for full-time, part-time-ish, and on-call currently?
Currently is 9 full-time with 1 out medically. So,
including you?
No, including me is 10
full-time.
Okay. With 1 out medically. And then our on-call staff we are at 18 on-call, plus there's some part-timers in that 18, so.
Okay, so full-time is really 11 if everyone was here? And I can
No.
4? No.
No.
It's 10, but
It's
right now
10.
we're operating at 9.
Right now, we're operating 9 with me, and that puts me on the truck, so most people see me during the week. What happens is we get a second ambulance call during the week. I'm on the truck with the fire inspector, the second ambulance, which happens a lot, and there's no one back at the station. So right now, if we weren't here, they're on a call. There's no one here. So someone coming into the lobby, bleeding, pregnant, which we've delivered, not at this particular station, the old station, we've delivered a couple of babies at. There's no one here. So keeping that staffing, trying to get that staffing back to 3 per shift would be huge. We can do it. 2 per shift is fantastic, but without anybody in the station on these calls helping out, keeping the things going, and that's the other part of this job, right? These guys maintain these trucks and this equipment every day, making sure they work. They're the first ones to detect that the pump's not right? They hear it when they're testing it out. And when you lose a fire pump on the truck, or you lose the whole truck, the truck becomes useless. They're the first ones to find us, make sure the chainsaws work, make sure the axes are sharpened, make sure the Halligans are good to go. They're polishing things to make sure we're in good maintenance shape. Before we had this involvement on the full-time staff, that stuff would, I remember calls where the truck wouldn't start, and someone they'll have to pile in the back of a pickup truck to get to the call. Or, you know, the whole reason the stations, maybe you look at them, not this one, but most of the old stations were built on hills, so you could pop the clutch and start the trucks, because they weren't staffed.
So Chief, what is the staffing at 18.25%?
It'll go down to 7.
Full-time, including you?
Not including me.
So 8 with you?
8 with me, but I won't be I don't work a particular shift. I work 24/7. So, but if I got things on the weekend or a day, meetings, the life of a chief, this week I think I spent a total of 6 hours in my office just working on this. I had meetings all week that took me out of town, over the school district, all the way around. So, you know, if I'm available, I'm there, I'm on the truck, but there's no command staff usually, if that's the case.
Okay, so 8 full-time with you, and then what is on-call part-time?
No, it'll go down, yeah. So
that's 18.
So part-time, right now, we're not gonna, part-time and on-call, we're not gonna touch, it's just, we're gonna be reducing what they do.
Okay.
Right? Because I can adjust it that way. So if it's a structure fire, I tell them to come back, but you know what? If I didn't use them on the fire alarm, or I didn't use them at the car accident last week, the pagers aren't getting turned on.
So what staffing level do you need to be able to avoid that 1 to 2 times a week not funded?
The 9, and then getting that part-time shift, whether it's a Saturday or Sunday, filled.
And what is the cost of a full-time paramedic, same as the police chief, all in? So
$67,000.
Okay. And what is the cost for that part-time that you were just referencing?
It'd be about the same.
So 60K as well?
Because you're using 2 bodies, and then we can use a third hit or miss.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. Any other questions? I saw some, I thought I saw a question over there. No?
I like planning ahead. What's the best time
During a FinCom meeting.
Give them about a half hour to get back from the hospital, and then that'll be there. That'll be primo, right here, yeah. If you can actually just do it out on the steps, so I don't have to come in the room. But thank you.
Steps out there.
Look, I know everybody's got a hard job ahead of them. Department heads, I know it's been a tough couple weeks. I appreciate it, honestly, and I appreciate you guys. So I don't want to see anything happen to you either, so thank you.
Mike, speaking that point, Heather, are there other department heads that would like to address the group, or yep, come on up.
You're up, Jim.
Green is on.
As long as it's green.
It's green. Jim Robert, Paxton Conservation Commission Chair. We would like to keep our budget flat and not reduced, because if it's cut, we're going to lose our professional wetlands agent.
Works. Jim, how much does Doug Dillon, the conservation agent, work a week right now? 4 hours, isn't it?
4 hours a week, 16 hours roughly a month, give or take. Some months a little short, some months a little more. It breaks out even over the course of the year. But he's the expert. If we lose him, we have problems. We usually had a civil engineer on our board, and we haven't had one of those since Mia left. That's all I got to say. Any questions?
Of Jim or the Conservation Commission?
What would be the impact of, like, is it the kind of thing where?
If an issue came up where we needed an expert, we would have to go hire an outside firm, which would cost us a lot more money than what that budget is.
And those are things that you can't just say, we're not going to do it. It has to be done. You're like mandated by the state to do it, so you don't have that person and you have to go. Get it?
You know, so that's what it boils down to. We either pay him or we hire outside companies to come in and do the work.
Thank you.
So the difference in the budget of fully funding the Concom agent versus
$1,548.
$1,308 for him, if you added the purchase services and conferences.
Okay.
It goes up higher.
All right.
Thank you.
Any further questions of Jim? Thank you.
Thanks, Jim.
Any other department heads? Laurie, come on up.
So Laurie Becker, Town Clerk, for those who don't know. For my department, I just recently had my Assistant Town Clerk resign, which was unfortunate but fortunate because it seems she would have been laid off otherwise. I do think in this upcoming year, I will be okay without an assistant. And I say that because if I look at this past year, I had major elections. There was a presidential election, there was a presidential primary, state primary, all those things. I just want to caution that going forward, I can't not have that staff person when I go into another big state election year. At a very minimum, I would need someone, even if it's seasonal or something, to be trained on doing elections. And specifically, keeping in mind, I think everyone's fully aware after the last couple of presidential elections that all eyes are on elections. There's a lot of question about fraud and all these other things. And in order to ensure that everything is on the up and up, I need to have the staff to maintain that. In the presidential primary this past year, I unfortunately got the flu right during early voting in person. If I had not had Hannah Lipper, who was my assistant and a fantastic one at that, come in to man my office, I'm not sure what we would have done as Plan B. She was able to run all the early voting in person. It is against the law to reschedule early voting. You can't just not have it. I mean, I don't know if I just come in with a fever or puking or whatever the case may be, but I just want, especially Finance Committee, to be aware of that. Also, I was starting with my elections budget. Before this came up, my election budget was down, I think it was 55%. Now, that wasn't because of anything bad. That's because of the cyclical nature of my elections budget. That happens all the time. It's like this. Because this coming year, all I have, God willing, is one local election. But in the future, that number is going to have to legally go up because I have to pay for my police. I have to pay my election workers. These are not optional things for my department. In addition, when I was asked to cut by the 18.25%, I was kind of taken aback that it wasn't just the town clerk side, it was the election side. The election side, there was, last year when all the budgets were so tough, we cut out any of the extra, like, fluff, if you will. I won't even call it fluff, but, you know, my election workers don't get paid, they don't get their, I mean, they still get paid, excuse me, they don't get their meals anymore. And we were, at that point in time, I think paying them $10 an hour. So I felt really bad. I mean, at least now they're, I think, minimum wage. But looking at this cut, I'm looking at not funding my poll pads for next year. Poll pads is the equipment that we use to ensure that the voting is done accurately. I was looking today, there's over 300 towns in the Commonwealth that use poll pads right now. This is not, I think in towns it's not be considered a luxury, but rather a necessity. And this is looking at not utilizing them next year because I wouldn't have the money to pay for that cost. So I just want you to be aware. We did, when I first started here and I heard about poll pads, I didn't want them initially. I was like, oh, that's a luxury, it's great, we don't need it, we can't afford it, whatever. And then, I apologize, I don't have the number with the year written down that it was that I bought them, but it was after a state primary and I saw an alarming number of errors. And eyes were on towns at that point. And it's things like, and you got to keep in mind with my election workers, I always hear the argument, you need to train them more. First of all, I don't have the money to train them more. But even if I did, these are people who work like 1 day a year or 2 days a year. So they're doing the best they can, and they're human. They are good workers. I don't want to say, I got to be careful here, because I don't want to make it sound like I have bad election workers. I don't. They are fantastic people, and they work very hard. But they are human, and they make mistakes. We all make mistakes. But what happens with an election, with a mistake, is I saw in a primary, there was situations where people asked for an early vote ballot that were allowed to vote at the election without going to the warden clerk to make sure that they were okay. With the poll pads, that does not happen. It's not possible for it to happen, because the people at that point are required to go to someone of authority to get a password to put it in to make sure that that person can vote. In addition, the inactive voters, to confirm that they live there, that they still live in town, and have to make sure that all that's all set, that has to go through password protection. So the number of errors has dropped dramatically as a result of them. So again, for this coming year, maybe it's okay. We only have one local election. I don't think the whole world's going to be doing public records requests for our little local election. But just going forward for state elections, I just wanted you to be aware of these things.
If you went without an assistant for a length of time, and then you have a year where you need them, like, how hard is it to get them up to speed? Like,
it's hard. I've actually been dealing with that a lot lately, because I don't know if you're aware, but Hannah Lipper, who was the best town clerk I could have asked for, had a baby, and her baby was born right before the presidential election. So it was challenging.
sounds like a planning problem.
I'm single, how does that work? Anyways, listen, thank you, Lori.
Is there any other questions before I?
Thank you.
Thank you, Lori. There's other department heads, don't be bashful.
I'll speak as the tree warden.
Oh, boy.
As for my budget, the $10,000, it's challenging, because that might take 2 or 3 trees that are potentially causing public safety issues. And that's if a crane's not involved to take care of that. The last couple of years, the light department and the DPW have been awesome about helping me out. I would hire purchase services to get it on the ground, and then our guys would come along when they were on duty and take care of the debris. But that's a very limited option given the tree problem in town. So I just want to make people aware that, if you're watching online, it's not that I don't really care about the trees that might be an issue, and there's a lot of them in town. It's just that it's hard to look people in the eye over and over and say, I'd love to take care of that, but I don't have the budget. And I don't know what the ramifications will be when one of these trees come down and it is a public safety issue, where I would go to pull the funds from to make that situation work out for the better.
Kirk, thank you. At the beginning of the meeting, don't mean to focus on anything one person said, but we were shilling for a higher budget. Even though we were trying to take it in the other direction, I think your point is well made, for sure. Anyone else? Yep.
Good evening, Elizabeth Clements, Treasurer Collector. I started the middle of October. I did have kind of a background as to the previous years in regards to failed overrides. Long story short, I mean, we have to work now with what we have and what we've been presented. In regards to my budget, there's really nothing else to cut other than my salary. The purchased service line items. The payroll system, they are increasing their fees for FY '26. I can say from previous towns that I've worked in, Harper's Payroll, it's a local payroll company. They are cheaper than ADP and other payroll softwares that are out there. The continuing disclosure debt with UFASI, that has to be done every year. I can't touch that in regards to printing, real estate, personal property, and motor vehicle bills. That is not something that I'm willing to do in-house. There's really zero cost savings. Right now, our deputy tax collector, Kelly and Ryan, they do all of our printing, stuffing the envelopes, and mailing. I can say they will not be providing a return envelope with bills going forward. That's not a requirement. It is a luxury to get a returned envelope in with your tax bill. The OPEB reporting, I know currently we don't fund OPEB. We still are mandated to do a report. I was hoping to utilize a lockbox service like the light department does for their light payments. Again, that was just to help with the bills coming in. Currently, about 900 bills I receive from CoreLogic, which is a tax service that mortgage companies and banks use. So out of the 900 envelopes, those are just going to waste, not to use. So the only real number I could cut from the purchase service budget was the lockbox. Again, cutting, a police officer, a firefighter, a plow driver. We're all in this together, and this was really the only option was to cut my salary. Supplies, I need paper, I need ink, I do print demand bills in-house. I do need envelopes to mail those. I can say, going forward, the demand bills will be issued in a more timely manner as the law allows. I have to wait 2 days after the due date. I've been waiting a week. I don't want to wait, longer than a week because it is additional revenue coming in. I don't want to be the bad guy and send out demand bills, but it's part of my job. In regards to tax title, that law has recently changed. The tax taking process, I now have to physically go to the property, the residential property, after the taking has taken place. So the lien's been recorded with the registry of deeds. I physically have to go and tape the notice of taking to the front door. I can tell you I'm not going to do that by myself. I'm going to have to hire a police detail. There's a cost associated with that. So again, looking at my line items other than, my salary was what I had to go at. And there will be a reduction in office hours that I'm open. I can tell you there could be slower revenue collections in regards to this. Municipal lien certificates, that's a legal document that's recorded with the registry of deeds whenever there is a change in ownership on a property. Those get processed the same day, the next day that I get them. I have 10 business days by law. Residents' phone calls on a daily basis. Can you help me with this? What did I pay in property taxes? I don't know if I'm going to have the time to answer those questions. They may have to be in writing, and again, it would be a 10-day business response. So again, with the reduction in salary, there's going to be a reduction in hours, and again, I'm going to do the best that I can to serve the town of Paxton. And going forward, again, hopefully we can all come to some type of conclusion, resolution, whatever you'd want to call it, to get things on a better path going forward, not just next year, but in the years to come. Thank you.
Any questions of Elizabeth? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Robert Birkbeck. I'm the principal assessor in town. I'm going to talk to you about the budget cuts and how they affect the assessor's office. So with the 18.25% budget cut, much like Liz's department, the majority will be coming out of my salary. I will be reducing my hours from 27 down to 21 hours. That will negatively impact the ability to inspect properties, which is where we're going to realize the growth when I find people that did decks or pools without the proper permits. So that's me finding additional revenue for the town. There's also a requirement for how many properties we're supposed to inspect each year. So for our recertification in FY27, we do have to get out to over 500 properties in town. So with my reduction in hours, that puts me out on the road the majority of the time. So that will leave little time for me to be in the office to answer residents' questions or concerns or get any information that they need. So right now, a lot of people come in with abatement applications, exemptions, all of that stuff, unfortunately, will be delayed response. And then one of the other parts that I was able to cut was the gas for the COA van. So that was something that we were paying for. But I'm going to use my personal car to go around and do these visits. It's a little riskier because I am in my regular car, so people don't know that I'm an actual town representative, and I'm already doing a job that not too many people are receptive to me being on their property to begin with. But I understood that when I took the position, and don't mind doing that. I also reduced my board salary by roughly 23% because that's what I did to my salary. So I thought that was a fair reduction. My board does have a salary because they do have to complete trainings. They do have to respond to one-off situations that do occur outside of regular board meetings. And then they are responsible for signing and approving all abatements, exemptions. So there is a lot of work and dedication that goes into that. Never mind, I know that we just had one of my new board members elected in this past election. As you could tell, there was no one that ran for the position, so it was strictly a write-in. So to even attract and retain people on the board, there has to be a stipend in there, unfortunately. So that's something that I just reduced to have the same number as my salary that was reduced. MLS dues, I cut that. I'm also a realtor, so I'll just use my MLS that I pay for personally. I will use that to validate our home information. I'm not going to attend any meetings that have fees. I'm brand new to this position. I started last month. I would love to go out, meet all the other assessors out there, get the proper training, but unfortunately the budget will not allow for that. So I'm going to try to do the best I can with free services and just networking with people that will talk to me for free. Yeah. The other place that I did do some cuts were personal property valuations. So unfortunately, we are mandated to actually have like an outside organization do the majority of those for us. But there was a small part that I was able to cut. Generally, you like to have a real expert do that because they can get difficult with how much computers or, these different items actually cost. But there is nowhere else for me to cut. It's really came down to that. So I just wanted everyone to know how it impacts the assessor's office. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any questions? Yes.
Can you just explain to me what the other expenses line item is? Did I miss that?
Oh, sorry. So that's where I have to pay for like Vision Camera, which is the government software. So it's required, and that's almost $17,000 of that right there. And then the rest of that would be paying like a RRC for doing the personal property valuations. They do like the radio towers, so like the utilities appraisals that need to be conducted. So it's all stuff that I really can't cut from there. Yep.
Anyone else?
Yep. Oh, okay. All right.
Thank you, Robert.
Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Pam Schoenebert from the library. If you haven't come in yet, please do. We love to see everybody from town at the library. I'm going to start with a few pieces of information you may not all have. I'm going to start with part of the mission statement. The library is a welcoming space for all ages, from children to senior citizens and everyone in between. It provides resources and services for every resident in the town of Paxton, regardless of age or background. So we've been providing the best we can with the budget we have, and we see high demand for our service. The library does the best it can, from applying for grants to repairing materials and pursuing fines for lost items. It is town-paid materials. We want to make sure that we get those back from patrons. We purchase from vendors who offer the best discounts and pricing. So what does the library offer to all of our residents? I have worked in Paxton since 2019, happily so, and in that time I've had the pleasure of getting to know town officials, all the fellow department heads, and many residents of Paxton. My staff knows our patrons by name. We're not cheers, we don't have alcohol, but we do have that personal relationship with that dated me. We do know our patrons by name, which is part of the reason they like to come to the library. We are vested in the day-to-day information, education, cultural enrichment, and literacy of this community. We all take our commitment to public service very seriously. We are a busy library for a town our size. We average around 1,000 visitors per month. This is tracked by a tracker. We also track circulation, phone calls, etc. Circulation for our print and electronic items just this past April was 3,452 items, which is about 101.5 items per hour that the library is open. We all heard from the safety, from EMS, well, we didn't hear from EMS, from the chiefs and DPW regarding safety. I do want to point out that the fire department was generous enough with their grant to make sure that 2 full-time staff members at the library are CPR and AED trained, as well as our 20-hour circ person. So the library is also providing safety to the town. We're also providing a safe space for children after school or on half days. We provide safe space for families, teens, and our seniors. We're also an unofficial cooling station and heating station, only because we don't have a generator. However, if someone's heat is out, and this has happened, they come to the library, it's warm, we have comfortable chairs. Same thing in the summer. It's hot at your house, you may not have air conditioning. Maybe it's broken and you can't get it fixed. You can come to the library and stay cool. Heating and cooling is a health and safety issue for people, and we're happy that we can have that space for the residents of Paxton. I do want to say that due to cuts in level funding over the past couple of years, the only things left in my budget to cut are people and books. We've already cut out all of our maintenance. We are using our trust fund for the building for our maintenance. It is the only thing it can be used for is maintenance and repairs. So we are doing that. Our CWMR's fee this year will be coming out of our state aid. That was also already out of the budget. So what is left to cut? That is a good question. People and books. So when you cut books, you're going to affect our ability to be certified. So MGL has 3 financial criteria that we need to meet to be a certified library. This is for all libraries in the state of Massachusetts. The first one is we have to meet the MAR, which is an average of a 2.5% increase over the average of the past 3 years. That's not being met by either of these budgets, the 18.25 or the 28.5. However, we could possibly meet the very lowest threshold of 17% of materials with the 18.5%. That's the lowest threshold we can go with the MAR not being met. The 28.5, there's no way we can meet that. It has to come from the municipality. The other factor we have to consider is minimum hours. With the 18.5, we can squeeze out, we can get to the minimum hours. With the 28.5, we cannot. So the 18.5, we can make it work. It's very tight. Certification is on the line. We have to apply for a waiver through the MBLC. So what will happen if we do lose certification? We will lose a $2,200 grant to help us with CWMARS. So the cost to have our network for the library will go up from $5,816 to $8,016. The other thing we will lose, if we lose certification, is access to all other libraries in the state of Massachusetts except for Boston Public Library. So residents in Paxton will not be allowed to check out books from other libraries at all. You can walk in the building, you can look at the items there, you can take attend a program. You cannot go to Holden and check out books. They won't let you. They all have policies that they won't lend to uncertified libraries. And that is an important note to note. You cannot use another library. Boston Public Library is the exception because it's paid for through state taxes. And you can still use the Boston Public Library digital items. You will no longer have access to other libraries' electronic items on Libby. People read electronic books. They listen to audio in their cars. So losing will also lose what's called interlibrary loan. Other libraries' books will no longer come to Paxton. So in the past year, May to May, 4,208 items were borrowed from other libraries, which is a savings to those residents of $63,120 per the CWMARS. They do the math for us. So that's how much those items have saved through interlibrary loan. I don't know of any residents who can purchase the amount of materials they want, the content they want to consume, whether it's kids' books, 6 mystery novels on the weekend. It's very expensive to pay for that yourself, which is why we share materials. The other thing, so I guess I covered all that. If we lose certification, we will also lose the $17,000 state aid grant, which pays for everything the budget doesn't cover, right? So if we need extra ink, extra paper, if we need any technology whatsoever, that comes from our state aid. And if we lose certification, it will take 18 months to get it back. So it's not a loss for 1 year, it's a loss for more than a year. I talked to the MBLC and it's in 18 months. So if you lose it, we lose it in January because we're good through the rest of the year because that's when they do their reports. I submit my reports in the summer, they go over them. If you apply for a waiver, it's December, January, and that's when it would be lost. And then it would take 18 months if they didn't give us the waiver. The other thing to note is the number of waivers the MBLC is allowed to give in the state is limited. We don't know what that number is. So it's going to depend on how much the town is supporting the library and what other towns are looking for waivers and how many are allowed. So that being said, we will do the best we can for the residents. I've met so many great residents here. They really do love the library and need the library and appreciate the library. And this isn't to say that we don't need all the departments, but I have to say it is very important to the people that come in the building. And I have seen a lot of Paxton residents. So we'll do the best we can. I work with the trustees to make it happen. So questions? I know that was a lot.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes.
Hello? I don't know. No, just a quick question. What do these cuts mean for online databases, like research databases?
So the research databases you can still access through the Boston Public Library if you have a Boston Public e-card, which all residents in Massachusetts are eligible for. If there's some that, all the ones that we have, the 75 that we have through the MBLC, you won't be able to access ours. Hi, Nick.
Yes. Is it working? How much do you pay for CW Mars a year?
So we're in what's called the small, we have a grant called the Small Libraries in Network, which is that grant I mentioned. So with that grant, we pay $5,816. It also includes our entire year of intranet service, which if you pay at your house, you know is valuable just for that. Without that grant, it's going to be over $8,000.
Over how much?
8,000.
8,000, okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Without the grant. And I didn't mention, we would be reducing our hours to 25. Cert staff would be reduced and custodial staff would also be reduced. And the book budget would be reduced 41.68% to $23,263, which is where certification would be a little problematic, to say the least.
But that's not at the 18.5.
That is at the 18.5. There's only two things to cut, people and books. So that is the 18.
Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you.
I think it's important also to emphasize that getting the waiver does depend on equitable cuts, that we can't, but state law, right, says that we cannot, the town would have to prove that the library was not disproportionately cut, which would be like 5% or greater relative to other departments. So I just wanted to make sure that's known.
So there's another waiver you'd have to do for a disproportionate cut, and the town, not the library, would have to explain why it was disproportionate. Yeah. It's less likely, but it's just it's more paperwork, and they don't really like it. They don't like disproportionate cuts. They want towns to support their library services, just like they support other services in town. Thank you, Joanna.
So Pam, disproportionate, does that mean that if, of 29 departments, if 25 were cut 18.25% and 4 were cut 9%, that would be disproportionate?
That's a good question. It's just I think it's 5% overall. So it would, I think it wouldn't, it's hard to say what they would say with that. It's not like we're not the only one. If we're the only ones cut at a certain level, it would be a problem.
Okay.
If it's all over the place, is it really disproportionate?
Yeah, right.
If you have time during the week, you might want to define that even more carefully for us to make sure we don't make a mistake.
Yep.
Good. Any other questions?
Hi.
The question, the certifications, meaning you can't go to any library in the state except Boston.
Yeah.
I think that people are not, people are definitely not aware of that. And I think especially people with families and kids, we rely on the library, especially before kindergarten. I mean, I think speaking from myself, I'm a developmental psychologist. I study learning in kids. The number of books kids are exposed to before they go to kindergarten is way bigger. Like that is what determines their likelihood of success. It costs money down the road. So I guess for proportionally, like if you're thinking about cuts in hours, how are you thinking about cuts in hours? Because for parents who work, right, we rely on night hours, we rely on weekend hours. Saturdays have already been, days have already been cut from it. I have a hard time getting my kids to the library now. So what is your thought process? If you're cutting down to 25 hours, what would those hours be? And how can we ensure that working families who live in town can access the library? Because currently, those night hours are incredibly important for working families with kids.
Thank you. Yes, currently we are open until 8 o'clock 2 nights a week and 4 hours on Saturday. How we do the hours is going to be a discussion I have to have with my board. I'm going to use metrics to do so, and obviously take into consideration people's schedules in town. We have metrics on when books are mostly checked out. We have hourly metrics on foot traffic and phone calls. And from being there since 2019, I also know when we're busy and when we're not. But I will use metrics to back it up, and the trustees will have to have a discussion about what works for the residents in the town of Paxton.
Any other questions of Pam? Sure.
As long as you have a microphone. Wow. I know, but I can't pick it up on the.
Okay. Sandy Fields, Nanigan Lane. So one thing that I want people to understand that I think was not abundantly clear last year during this cycle is that the library is a municipal department just like every other department and cannot rely on donations or fundraising or trust for their specific line items in the overall budget, and we have to be mindful of that when we're also considering the fact that the dollar amount that is used for the certifications that Pam talks about has to come from the town. And there was a lot of misinformation last year, especially at the town meetings about, oh, we'll fundraise for it, or, you know, can we use it from, the library has these trusts, the trusts are allocated for specific things like building maintenance. Fundraising is an added incentive that the library could potentially look into, but it should not be the way that we keep the lights on, the staff in the building, and books on the shelves. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you, Sandy. It also doesn't count towards certification. And just to clarify, Mark, for you about the disproportionate according to the MBLC, and I'll repeat it if it's confusing. A cut, so this is regarding the disproportionate cut worksheet. A cut to the library budget is considered disproportionate when the library budget reduction exceeds the overall municipal budget cut by 5% or more. That's the answer, whatever that means to you from your perspective.
Thank you.
I have a quick question. This is
Yeah.
probably a really stupid question,
No,
but does losing a certification long-term mean literally like you have to close down at some point? Like, are there non-certified libraries operating in Massachusetts, or is it? Okay.
There are 5. 3 didn't apply for
There's
it.
not like a big network of.
No, 5. There are 5 and 3. Of the 5, 2 didn't even apply. I think 1 has like 4 people in town. It's a weird situation, but most libraries are certified in the state of Massachusetts.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. All set? Cindy?
Anyone else?
Thank you.
Thank you, Pam.
Hello. Good evening. My name is Cindy Love. I am the director at the Council on Aging, and I also serve as the outreach coordinator for the town of Paxton, who services all our seniors. We get questions all the time. What does the Council on Aging do? They think, you know, we also run the senior center, so there's different components of how we serve our seniors. We serve over a quarter of the population. Paxton is seniors. We consider a senior 60 years of age and older. And this budget reduction is huge for our seniors, very impactful for services, and especially in our center. With that being said, we will try to continue the services as best as we can. I think the most important thing for us is making sure our seniors have all the services they need, especially for meals. We served over 6,000 meals last year, home-delivered meals to our seniors, and roughly 500 or 600 in the senior center for our congregate. We will try to continue that as best as we can because there's such a need. We also have a food pantry for our seniors, which is crucial. Everyone says in Paxton, seniors don't need this or people don't need this. There is the need for the seniors, and we started this 4 or 5 years ago, right before COVID. And during COVID, we actually opened it up to the whole town as best as we can with lots of donations and support. And since then, we've kind of maintained it only for our senior base. So there is that need, so we hope to continue that. But most importantly, while I do all the senior services, it is huge. We get, I can't even tell you, 10, 12, 15 calls. It can be, we do home and health services. We provide health insurance information and guide the seniors where they need, just to keep them through the various stages of their life, to help keep them maintaining their independence as long as we can. But through the senior center, with this reduction, we also saw a reduction last year. It's huge. Seniors look for our senior center. They look for that socialization. They look for things to do. We have people come in daily just for the socialization or to visit with me. We have a very active senior center for such a small town. So with those reductions, we're seeing programs. Our programs, we focus really for all ages, but the programs that we do, we're getting cut. At least 75% of our programs will be cut. Primarily on the quality of life programs, health and safety programs. We have physical therapists come in, doctors come in, talk about fall prevention and screenings. So all these things will have to be either eliminated or cut 75%. As well as our health fair. We have an annual health fair. Last year we hit a record of probably 180 individuals that came in. We offered COVID shots, flu shots, free hearing, free vascular screening. So a lot of these things will be cut. We'll try to maintain as many as we can. And of course, first and foremost, in my passion, we'll make sure our seniors have the services, at least that they need in their homes, to stay safe going forward. So, you know, like I said, we got cut last year, we're getting cut this year, we understand it. Plus, with this reduction, at the 18.25, we'll probably have to close the center a day. I think it's more important to do that, but try to maintain whatever programs we can. I'll take the compensation, a little bit of the, cut on my end to make sure our seniors have what they need. We're very passionate. Our seniors deserve better than they actually have gotten. So we try to, they've lived in this town, they've brought up, their children, and they want to retire here and stay here safely. And we will provide the best services we can for what our budget requires to the best of my ability. I am a one-person department. It's just me, so I also do, like I said, the outreach services as well as run the senior center. So nothing we can do. It is, as Mike said, it is what it is. We're all in the same position. I work closely with the fire department as well as the police department at time with senior issues, and so we do work well together as well as the other department heads. So we will do the best we can in making it work for our seniors, and hopefully they won't see any, there'll be changes, obviously, but on the service side, we'll try to maintain 150% for them, because that's important. So just wanted to bring that to your attention. So,
Any questions?
No? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cindy.
Thank you very much.
So, I don't want to go. Sorry?
One more, Mark.
Sorry, Larissa?
Larissa Kennedy, town accountant. I'm pretty much all salary, so I'm going from 20 hours to 16, and I can do it, but nobody can talk to me in those 16 hours. That's it.
Okay.
Well, I'm glad one accountant in the room is a few words.
Oh, boy, that's too easy.
Well, it's obvious that the town, oops, one more speaker, sorry.
Hello, my name is Brooke Malef. I've seen a lot of you before, but if you don't know me, I'm the permitting coordinator. And I also deal with the building department and the Board of Health, among other boards like zoning, EDC, and planning board. So, like most of the department heads here, 95% of my budget is my wages. So what you're gonna see is reduced hours. I'm 5 days a week currently. It will be reduced to 4. And with that cut, based on how many boards I work with, the building department, permitting, and obviously Board of Health permitting as well, you're going to see a large decrease in efficiency in all of those areas. So as far as purchase services, really it's 200 saved for when we have to do a public hearing for the planning board for the MBTA in the fall. And that's about all we can afford with this cut. Supplies has been reduced to bare minimum. I need paper and ink, and that's about it. Like I said, most of it's my wages. So during those 4 days a week, I'll respond to calls, emails, voicemails, whatever I can in that time when I have time to. And moving to the building department, which it's the same issue. You're going to see, ultimately it comes down to the building commissioner's wages will be cut. That's kind of the only thing we can touch there. So what that would look like is reduced hours for him. He's already part-time. He works for Worcester during the day. So when he's not answering my 1 million calls or texts or questions that I have for him, he tries to do the permitting that he can on OpenGov during the day. A lot of times he's working after hours, doing a couple inspections a day, multiple days a week. This reduction would look like 50% of his hours, which at 18.25 would be 11 weekly hours for the town of Paxton. Half of that would be during the day or whenever he can to answer calls or permitting on OpenGov. And then the other half would be spread quite thinly throughout the week, after hours, most likely from 5 to 6 p.m., doing 1 to 2 inspections a day, if that. So what this is going to mean, and this can already get backed up as we are now with permitting in the building department, it's going to really gum up the works, if I'm being honest. So I think the decrease in efficiency there could affect revenue we get from permitting, the willingness of people to want to do that kind of work here. That can be a problem already, but with the slowness of things in the potential cut of this budget, it could deter people from wanting to do that kind of business in Paxton. That's pretty much it for the building department. It's really the building commissioner's wages. And then I do also work with the Board of Health. Again, a lot of that is wages for the sanitation inspector and the animal inspector. I worked with Julia. Was it really yesterday? It feels like much more time than just yesterday. To come up with what an 18.25% cut would look like. That would eliminate committee compensation completely. It wasn't much to begin with, but it would not be there. We're looking at reducing the animal inspector's pay by approximately $500, which could be an issue. I'm not sure of how often or how many hours they're working now, but I'm sure it would see a reduction based on the pay. We did not want to touch the sanitation engineer's compensation, because he already does a reduced amount of work during the week for our town. So he fits what he can into that 1 day a week that he comes up or down from New Hampshire to Paxton to do food inspections, anything at my office, perk tests, things like that. So we didn't really want to touch his compensation, as it wasn't, we feel, enough already, to try and preserve something there at least. As far as the $3,000 for purchase services, we decided to remove $2,500 of that for the beaver removal services we provide, meaning in the future people would have to just take care of the bill themselves. leaving 500 for, I'm not sure what the 500 was for.
What it was? No, I don't think so.
Something
It
important.
was 2,500 and 500.
Yeah,
I remember the 2,500 was what we were gonna cut. You know, that is the beaver removal. And, you know, so we have paid for that in the past because we have to be the ones to apply for a permit in order to call a trapper in to get the beaver. And, you know, we're not gonna be able to provide the beaver removal service anymore.
And then the last line, supplies, would just be eliminated. It wasn't much to begin with, so I think that would be okay. $125 would be okay. But those are what the cuts look like for the budgets that I kind of oversee. Does anyone have any questions? I will try to answer.
Any questions of Brooke?
I just.
I didn't quite hear what you said, Julie. Did you say that you were removing funding for beaver removal?
Yes.
Okay. So we do have a pretty significant beaver issue in this town. We've had the trappers out 3 or 4 times already this year, so.
Right.
Whom is going to be paying that bill moving forward?
It's a great question. I don't think we're going to be able to provide the service, period.
I think we just become friendly with beavers.
So when the dam's getting built at Illings Pond Spillway and it's flooding out the Illings Pond parking lot and Wentworth Field, we're going to leave that moving forward.
If it were to come to that, Travis, if that came to fruition, then we'd have to look at what are the different ways we could address it, such as by considering going to the reserve if it became a dire issue.
Just a little humor, maybe we can introduce the beavers to the trees that we're trying to remove.
Well, I don't think
missed what Kirk said.
I don't think Kirk could hear Travis because he doesn't have a mic. So Kirk's suggestion is to find a way to work with the beavers with our tree problem.
Perfect. Way to think out of the box there, Kirk.
Yeah, leave it to me, right?
Leave it to Beaver.
Yeah, there you go. Exactly.
So moving forward, when I'm being notified of beaver issues from town, whom should I be contacting?
Mark Love directly.
Fantastic answer.
I did have one question on the building department side of things. We're reducing the building commissioner's wages, and I think I know the answer to this, but I wanted to just check. We're not reducing the electrical inspector or the plumbing inspector wages. What's the reason?
Yep.
So there's an offset on the plumbing and the electrical on the revenue side, right? So we pay each inspector now $50 per inspection they attend. And each of those has a corresponding fee permit with it, and there's a certain amount we make off of each of those permits they attend to, so it's a wash.
So they're paid per permit as opposed
Yes.
to the building inspector
Yes.
paid hourly?
Yes.
That's what I thought. Okay.
Anybody else?
Thank you, Brooke.
Thank you. Thank you, Brooke. Yep.
Sorry, short people here. I know I'm not a department head, but I am Donna Graff Parsons, the executive assistant for the town. I have worked for the town for over 26 years. I live in the town. And just, as everyone else with the town hall comes down, my salary is it. It's going to get cut. Hours in the office are going to get cut. Just to let people know who may not be aware of the information that I kind of process on a daily basis, it touches all the departments. So as you hear all these departments saying how they're going to have to cut, when I get cut, they're going to take an even deeper cut. I handle the payroll. I handle the HR, onboarding and offboarding of your employees, the licensing. It kind of goes on and on and on. We'll do what we have to do to get by. It kills me to see additional burden being put onto departments that are already suffering. And I know I was told to come up here and speak without letting emotion get to it, and I apologize. But with all these years putting service into the town, it hurts. It hurts. I don't envy the Finance Committee, the Select Board, TA. You have a mountain to climb. But please know, whatever I can do to help and assist, don't hesitate to call on me. That's what I'm here for. So that's my 30-second speech, and thank you for letting me talk. Thank you.
Laurie, did I see your hand?
Yeah. Can I just start from here?
Yep.
I'll be quick. I just realized, I'm sorry, when I went up there on the fly, I did not fully say everything that I wanted to say, so I just wanted to let you know. As far as the absence of an assistant town clerk, I just want the residents to realize what that means, that if I'm on vacation or whatever, there is no one there to do birth certificates, death certificates, that sort of thing, dog licensing, all of those services can't happen, people getting sworn in, all those kinds of things. So just so they're aware that they will have to wait. So don't wait till last minute to get your license or whatever. And additionally, another thing that was cut was training for my office. I'm currently a certified clerk. Without the training, I will lose that certification, which I've worked really hard for. And in addition, on the election side, I had to cut supplies, which means currently, legally, I have to send out the census every year. Legally, I have to send out inactivation notices. Currently, I also send out a second mailing of the census. It's not legally required, and that is something that would be cut. So people will have, there'll be more people getting made inactive, more people getting deleted that may actually still live in town. So I just wanted to let you know about those things.
Any other department heads? So it's pretty obvious the town's in good hands by virtue of the department heads that we've, all of them that we've heard speak, and you make a compelling case for your departments, and frankly, you didn't need to make the compelling case. We know it, we feel it, which makes the cuts that you may have to experience all the more difficult for us to have to make. But thank you all for your compassion and dedication and good information this evening, and for staying with us as long as you have. I don't want to get into the public comment piece, but is there anybody from the public who would like to speak, particularly on the heels of the department head speaking?
Microphone.
Yet again, Sandy Fields, Nanigan Lane. So curious as to, there seems to be a lot of duplication when it comes to supplies. And we've heard a lot of departments talk about paper and ink and things that I'm curious if we have looked at from a holistic standpoint and actually have the old school supply closet where the paper and the ink and the pens all reside, so that we're paying, a BJ's discount price versus a Staples individual purchasing price.
Yeah.
I think we really need to start being mindful of those little things that can add up, and we see them, repeated here as line items for multiple departments. That's all I wanted to say.
No, good point.
Heather, can you just respond to that?
I'm working on it, but I believe, yeah. So it's not in central purchasing, though. I think it's in our town building supplies is where it is. So just keep in mind, too, when you see the word supplies for each of the lines, right, it's associated with an accounting code. So supplies may not mean the same thing in every department.
Agreed.
As we see, sometimes it could be like, if you do licenses, it could be specialty paper. It could be, like for Brooke, she has a plotting printer now, right? So it could be ink for that no one else uses, so.
I just think that any commonality that can be combined in order to save even a penny. Okay.
Thank you.
Elizabeth?
Microphone.
Thank you. Yes, I would like to speak to just the paper and ink. I mean, we mail out tax bills. People come in. I'd like a stamped paid copy of my receipt. I mean, since I've been here in October, I've probably gone through at least 2 reams of paper just recopying a tax bill that you should be bringing in the whole bill. The top half is your remit. We mail semi-annually to save on paper, postage. Again, if everyone can bring in their whole bill, if they're adamant about getting a stamp paid receipt, there are communities that do charge a duplicate bill fee. Do I want to do that? No, but again, ink is expensive for my little printer. I've already paid a bill printing company to print the bills, to mail them. So I mean, again, every little penny does count. Thank you.
Library. Thank you, Sandy, for your question. I do want to say we have reduced our paper usage at the library to the point of sometimes the trustees are looking at a screen and not at paper. We will be increasing ink and paper costs, passing them on to people who are making copies at the library, including people in this room. But for our supplies, we spend more on paper towels than we do on paper. And we spend more on air filters than we do on ink. So supplies does mean more than paper. I will be looking at a grant to get hand dryers and the paper towels to save about, in the bathrooms to save the 90% of what we're spending on paper towels. So that's going to be my savings.
Well, I don't, with all the good feedback and information, I don't know that we've put it to a point where the Finance Committee would want to make a vote or a motion. I think that there's, Heather, if I'm not wrong, there probably were 4 or 5 or 6 things that kind of got pointed in your direction to try to revisit and recalibrate and recalculate. And maybe if we ask that you do that, we have a joint meeting scheduled for next Tuesday, and maybe that can be sent out before then, and we can come to the table again next Tuesday with probably the need to come to a final decision at that particular point. I just don't, and maybe I'm reading it wrong, but I just don't have a sense that we're at a point where we want to make a recommendation or a vote. A lot of good information came to us. I wouldn't want it to be lost on the fact that the Finance Committee is by far the lowest budget of all 43 at $170. So
that will be eliminated.
Except for economic development.
Yeah. We tried to lead by example, but your load to carry is far heavier than ours. So that was not meant disrespectfully, but I don't think we're ready. I think we need to get ready, and we will be ready, but I don't think we're there right now.
So the one thing we just have to keep in mind, and this is probably very important for everyone to come back to the next meeting with ideas, is if you add in, right, like a half a PD or a full PD or 1.5 or what have you, we can calculate those costs. And we know, like I've been playing on my sheet all evening to figure out, where that puts us at a deficit. But then we have to cover those funds somewhere. And we know we've already extended pretty much where we can go with our revenue side. So to add something means to subtract something else.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Right? So right now, just to give people a perspective, so if we were to add back in 1.5 police officers so that it covers the police chief for that one person through the rest of the year, not just through December, and add a second person, the cost of that was about $135,000. If we were to add back one full-time fire department member and one part-time, it's $67,000 each, so you're looking at $134,000, right? By the time you're all done, you added in the additional money for the tree warden and a couple other small little tweaks, you're looking at about $300,000. So the problem becomes, where do you then cut the $300,000, right? There's been a lot of talk and a lot of discussion, a lot of concerns, and a lot of advocacy for the small departments about the importance of those individual departments as well as the services that one person provides, right? They provide everything in that department, and they're all right now in that 18.25% looking at reductions in their services. But the question becomes, where do you take the money from? Are there any policies you can implement across the board that would be fair to eliminate certain things to make some of that money out? But you're still not going to get to that 300,000. So I think it's super important that when people come to the table on Tuesday, that folks have ideas of if we want to pursue those avenues, where do we take the money from? And nothing we have currently would give us an instant $300,000.
So my takeaway from that, Heather, is that you made mention of some things that I think, in fairness to them having been mentioned, we ought to take a look at. And we ought to dollarize and find out where it lands. But the key that I take away from your remarks, as you said 4 times, if, and that's the $64,000 point. If we do that, and we may see that it makes perfect sense, but financially it's just not doable. So that's what I'm taking to the table. I'd like to see it, but seeing it doesn't mean that is necessarily something that we can do.
So what do the boards want for me to work with the departments to put together for your review on Tuesday? What do you need? What are you looking for? I'm not really good at ESP anymore, so it's helpful when people spell things out for me.
I'm pretty personally, as one single member of the Finance Committee, I'm pretty much there, but I would like to entertain the thoughts that were put forward for police and fire and come back. I'd like to have you rethink the tree warden. I'd like you to rethink the town administrator department, and we've already talked about legal being okay, but maybe rounding a little bit. I would like you to take a look at stipends that are paid across the board. And there's a difference between paying something per hour for a function that they're performing versus giving them a stipend because they're a member of a board or a commission. And we talked about supplies, and every nickel or every penny counts. That, by my count, that could be anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000. I think it's worth looking at. We mentioned it a week ago to look at it, and we're mindful. If Mass General Law says we can't do it, then we can't do it, and let's not do it. But is it something to look at that maybe we can do? And if Tony and Jeremy and Jeff want to weigh in with some of their own personal thoughts.
Yeah, the only thing I was going to say is the select board comfortable with this approach? I mean, we're going to be cutting up right close to the wire there next Tuesday. Are you guys comfortable with that approach? That's one question. And then a second question to Mark, is there any value in the Finance Committee meeting between now and next Tuesday? I know it's a holiday weekend, but between now and next Tuesday to have another working session to come back with a lot of this, so we're kind of ahead of the game.
I'd be happy to post meetings for the 28th and 29th in the event that we need to do that, but I think meeting now, between now and the 21st, we're going to run into posting issues because we need time to put a 24-hour, so 48. So I'm happy to post them for the 28th and 29th, and if we don't finish our work on the 27th, we go to the 28th and we go to the 29th.
I meant before then.
I'm saying I don't think it's going to be practical. First of all, Heather needs time to do.
What's that, Kirk?
What's that, Kirk?
Sorry, I did it. It's my fault.
That's not me.
It was you, then it was me. Sorry.
So what I was saying is good point, but Heather needs time to do it, and we need time to make the
You wouldn't be able to post
open
it
meeting law
before 9
posting.
PM on Friday right now. So
Right.
that may not be practical.
Right.
I'm not coming.
Okay.
So good
9
point.
PM Friday, but I think Mark has a good point. So we do have a little wiggle room before we have to finalize everything because it's an annual town meeting.
Yeah.
And it's not till the 16th. We have to get it posted at least 7 days in advance. That being said, we don't like to post it 7 days in
I
advance.
understand.
We like it as much as possible.
Okay.
But to Mark's point, if the FinCom's available, I think it would be a great idea to have additional time booked if we're not able to resolve everything on Monday or Tuesday. Now, I'm messing myself up.
Tuesday, right?
Tuesday, yes, it's Tuesday.
Yeah.
The Select Board FinCom joint meeting day after Memorial Day, that's why it's a Tuesday. Tuesday, then, to have something scheduled for the Wednesday and Thursday, I think makes good sense.
Otherwise, okay.
The only thing I wanted to add is just because this is an impossible situation, but we're all stuck with it. But as we're all going back and looking at this and prioritizing these things, like, I didn't hear a single person come up here where I was like, oh, we can do without that.
Right.
I mean, it was painful hearing what people were saying, but as you're going through this, keep in mind the things that impact revenue too, because we have years down the road. And I think Mike brought this up the other day when we met, was we know maybe we're going to be doing this every year, I don't know, but the things that impact revenue have an even longer term impact. If we're decreasing that this year, it's probably going to compound the issue for next year. So yeah, we're getting ourselves to that bottom line this year, but we're setting ourselves even further back next year. So I'm just asking everybody, as you go through these things and prioritize them, really think about the ones that are hurting us more down the road too, when it comes to the money coming in.
Select Board?
So if I'm hearing you right, Mr. Love, we have our homework set for us.
We have what?
We have our homework set for us. If we decide that we'd like to add something, we got to find a place to pay for it. That's something that we can all take a look at, come with different ideas on Tuesday, starting with, as you said, the 18 and 2500% column that was provided for us. Does that sound accurate?
Yes.
Excellent. Anything else from my wonderful select board? Kirk, you too, out there, wherever you are?
I have nothing else. I think that's a pretty good summation.
Okay.
The one thing I wanted to mention, and I kind of echo one of the things that Mark had said at the beginning of the meeting, that this is the new normal, and we have to sort of prepare like that is the case, right? And I hope at some point down the road it's going to change, but for right now, we don't have that apparent to us. So, we're working to balance the budget in order to get to town meeting on June 16th. We're not going to be able to solve that problem of it being the new normal between now and June 16th. We don't have that kind of time. But we will need to be looking at this going forward in terms of a restructuring in order to come up with more permanent solutions, I think, coming down the road.
I think that's well said, Julia. So I think it's not something we can do right now, but I think after this budget cycle passes, we need to, and I think it's really this summer, the Tuesday after Labor Day at the latest, we really need to sit down and look at planning for next year and what our operating models look like. Because this just gets us, remember now, if it's 18.25, whatever, and it's moving this to that, that just gets us to a balanced budget this year. And that's using $500,000 in free cash and $400,000 in ambulance receipts. So our deficit of $1 million is really $1.9 million-ish and change, using, and then backing that down, using $400,000 in ambulance receipts and $500,000 in free cash. So it's really a $1.9 million deficit, which means we have to really this summer start looking at, there's no magic answers, I don't have that answer, but I think there's no, that has to be looked at.
And cutting ambulance receipts going forward. So,
yeah, right. So
that's
maybe less. Yeah. I just want to say one thing else before we adjourn. Thank you all for coming. We're lucky to have each and every one of you here, whether you have blue lights, red lights, yellow trucks, books, or work in the town hall, or whatever else. We really, they are yellow trucks. They are? And white trucks, yes. And white trucks, yes. And so we're lucky to have all of you, so thank you very much.
And a baby.
What's that? And a baby. I was such a well-behaved.
Amazing, by the way.
Really?
You were a baby? I doubt it. Not
That's the first well-behaved Otmar child.
The first well behaved, Mark. Is that what I just heard?
Can I add one thing?
Any further comments?
One more further comment.
Yep.
I'm sorry. So I just want to thank the people who got up and spoke. I know for a lot of you that was very difficult, and I know there's many of you out there that don't like speaking in public, and coming up and doing that today was a big step, and I want to applaud you for doing that. I think that was fantastic of you to get up and have that courage and say your piece. I know Mark had said earlier that, we know how hard you work and how much you do for the town, and you don't need to sell yourself to us. But at the same time, I think it's so important that the town as a whole hear what you have to say, because people need to hear what they're going to lose and what's missing going forward. So I really appreciate you coming out and putting this together and putting this hard work in, and we're going to keep working hard for you.
Yeah.
And I would encourage you to put this out on your Facebook feed or whatever, so that folks in town, this is probably one of the most informative meetings that I've sat in the last 4 years, as to what every department does, what they contribute, and how hard that everyone's working to the benefit of the town, so that they understand that, we're not the bad guys when things don't go well.
Good comments. Saul?
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
So moved here at 9:21.
Second. All in favor? Aye.
I need a motion.
Finance Committee stands adjourned.
I have a motion from Julia. Second from Chris. We have somebody online, so we have to do roll call. Julia?
Aye.
Chris?
Jeremy still on?
Carol? And Kirk.
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well.
We're going to do our, Jeremy, you agree to adjourn?
Aye.
We're done.
Was a weak aye.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you, everyone.
I don't know.